Chapter 3194. Squire Hao. Xiao Jian seemed to have seen this old man before. Without waiting for the old man to speak, he quickly walked forward and shouted. Squire Hao's expression was somewhat dispirited. Although there was a kind of expectation in his eyes, it was extinguished in the darkness of the night. However, after hearing Xiao Jian's shout, Squire Hao raised his eyebrows and a smile appeared on his face. He walked out of the moon gate and cupped his hands. Taoist Master Xiao. I have heard of Taoist Master Xiao's reputation, but I have never had the chance to meet you. Now that I have seen you today, it is just as I thought. You have the demeanor of an immortal. I don't dare. Xiao Jian cupped his hands and said, I am only one of the thousands of cultivators in my Taoist sect. Because of the favor of the sea god, the Jiangqiao Temple was able to bring Taoist Master Zhao's favor to the people of Longevity Town. I am only standing in Xiao Jian's routine of modesty. However, before he could finish speaking, dang, from the moon gate came the sound of a wooden fish, which made Xiao Jian frown. Xiao Jian's words were immediately interrupted. He looked at the shadow behind Squire Hao with a puzzled expression. Taoist Master Xiao. Squire Hao's face was slightly embarrassed. He said in a low voice, I have sent the goose feather letter to the Jiangqiao Temple, but I haven't seen Taoist Master Xiao for a long time. I know that the Jiangqiao Temple is very popular now, so Taoist Master Xiao doesn't have much time. Therefore, I thought of the monks of the small gold temple. Of course, the small gold temple can't be compared to the Jiangqiao Temple, but it is better than nothing, right? Therefore, I took the liberty to invite the monks of the small gold temple. Of course, since Taoist Master Xiao is here, I will drive these monks away. After saying that, Squire Hao pretended to turn around. Xiao Jian's heart was as clear as a mirror. Hao Yulong, his name was changed, must have sent the goose feather letter to him, and immediately left for the small gold temple without waiting for his reply. Since Squire Hao had invited the monks of the small gold temple and the Jiangqiao Temple, how could he drive them away? What he said just now was just polite words. If he had followed his words, he would have been the one to be driven away. Therefore, Xiao Jian quickly pulled Squire Hao's sleeve and said, Squire Hao's words. Oh, what do you mean, Taoist Xiao? Squire Hao wasn't surprised that Xiao Jian stopped him, but he still asked. Xiao Jin Temple is a branch of Buddhism. Naturally, it has its own unique side. Xiao Jian said with a smile, since they have come, let them make the first move. It wouldn't be too late for little Taoist to make his move when they were helpless. Otherwise, wouldn't the official lose face? That's true. Squire Hao slapped his forehead and smiled bitterly. I invited them here. If I drive them away now, wouldn't it seem like I'm disrespecting Buddha? The Taoist priest's reminder was the best. Even if they can't, we can't not give them a chance. Exactly. Xiao Jian nodded with a smile. This Taoist is Squire Hao looked at Xiao Hua behind Xiao Jian, and asked in a low voice after finishing his polite greeting. Oh, this is also a fellow Taoist from the Taoist school. He is passing by the Longevity Town. Xiao Jian said hurriedly. He heard that there will be an immortal Buddhist ceremony tomorrow, and my Jiangqiao Temple will accept the challenge of Xiao Jin Temple. Therefore, he stayed to help little Taoist. However, he is not good with words. I hope Squire Hao can understand. I see. Squire Hao nodded. It seemed that he didn't care about the challenge. He said, then please come in. Squire Hao, please. Xiao Jian raised his hand and gestured. Squire Hao didn't stand on ceremony. He turned around and entered the moon gate. When he turned his head, an indescribable gloom appeared in his eyes. It was more obvious than the shadow between the light and the darkness. Xiao Jian glanced at the silent Xiao Hua and the butler Hao Yulong, who was frowning beside Xiao Hua. His heart felt heavy. Generally speaking, Squire Hao should have told him what happened to the Hao family. Then he would have thought about how to deal with the moon gate. However, Squire Hao's abnormality made Xiao Jian's heart skip a beat. Squire Hao must have encountered something very difficult, or even something very embarrassing. That was why he couldn't speak. Xiao Jian was afraid that he could only adapt according to the situation. After passing through the moon gate, what came into view was an extremely tall and lush osmanthus tree. Under the osmanthus tree, there was a two-story embroidered building, which was brightly lit. Around the embroidered building, there were several bald monks sitting cross-legged. Each of them had a wooden fish in their hands, and they were tapping it merrily. The murmuring of sutras flowed out from their mouths. In front of the monks was a 3-foot-high Zen platform. Another monk wearing a yellow kasaya was sitting cross-legged on it. He held a Zen staff in his hand and wore a monk's crown on his head. He was also chanting something with his eyes closed. Although this monk's back was facing Xiaojian, and it was night time, Xiaojian could recognize at a glance that this monk was Ming Fa of Xiaojin Temple. Strange. Xiaojian was surprised. What's wrong with Xiaojin Temple today? Why didn't the old monk Ming Yu come? Why did they only send Ming Fa? Damn it, this old man's reputation has fallen. Thinking of this, Xiaojian looked around again. Behind these monks were some vulgar housewives. They were standing with their sleeves pulled up. Their gazes passed over the monks' bald heads and fell on the lights of the embroidered building. Looking at the surroundings of the embroidered building, at the edge of the flowers and trees, there were burly men holding swords and other weapons in their hands. They were guarding there very vigilantly. Ah, bitter. Seeing the Hao clan's formation, Xiaojian first felt regret in his heart. Damn it, why did I open the goose feather letter for no reason? Leaving it there. Even if Minister Hao blames me, I can just say that I didn't see it. Now I've received a hot potato. Last time, when Minister Lu invited me over, it wasn't like this. I just don't know if Senior Xiao can. Thinking of this, Xiaojian couldn't help but slightly turn his head and glance at Xiao Hua from the corner of his eyes. Xiao Hua still had the same expression. He narrowed his eyes and no expression could be seen. On the contrary, when Hao Yulong saw Xiaojian turn his head, he hurriedly walked over and whispered, Daoist Xiao. The place in front of the embroidered building was originally reserved for Daoist Xiao. However, when Daoist Xiao didn't come, Master Ming Fa of the small gold temple came, and had no choice but to give it to them. It doesn't matter. Xiaojian saw that Minister Hao was already sitting on a brocade chair not far away. His gaze once again returned to the embroidered building. How could he still care about this matter? He asked again, now that things have come to this, can the housekeeper tell me the reason for this matter? Yes, Daoist Xiao, this way please. Hao Yulong nodded in agreement and extended his hand to lead Xiaojian to walk under the cassia tree. Just as the three of them walked past the cassia tree, there was a loud rustling sound. The cassia tree shook violently for no reason, and leaves fell from the cassia tree, scattering all over Xiaojian and the others. Not only was Xiaojian startled, but it also attracted the attention of the monks of the small gold temple. Their gazes, sharper than swords, instantly clashed with Xiaojian's gaze several times. On the contrary, Hao Yulong didn't have any abnormalities. It was as if he had already experienced this. Seeing that Hao Yulong didn't panic and Xiao Hua still had that deadpan expression, Xiaojian's heart calmed down. There was even a trace of a smile hanging on the corner of his mouth. The back of the embroidered building was also brightly lit. However, there weren't any of the Hao family's housewives. Instead, there was a lonely offering table. There were also a few maids gathered around it. Everyone's face was filled with panic. They were originally whispering, but when they saw Hao Yulong coming over, they hurriedly shut up. On the offering table, there were a pair of candles, several pieces of yellow paper, and some miscellaneous things. It seemed that the Hao family had already prepared everything. Daoist Xiao Hao Yulong pointed at the things on the offering table and said in a low voice, These were all prepared by this old man. What else do you need? No need. Xiaojian answered very satisfactorily. These things are enough. However, housekeeper Hao still needs to clearly explain to me what happened here. Otherwise, I won't be able to subdue the demon. It's hard to explain in a few words. Hao Yulong sighed and explained the matter in a low voice. Although Hao Yulong's voice was soft, Xiao Hua, who was at the side, heard it clearly. It turned out that this embroidered building was where the Hao family's young miss lived. This Hao family's young miss was usually kind. When she encountered injured or homeless small animals that no one wanted to adopt, she would bring them back home. The empty space near the embroidered building was usually occupied by those small animals. Moreover, after these small animals recovered, the Hao family's young miss was reluctant to give them away. Thus, The entire courtyard was in a bit of a mess. If the Hao family was poor, the Hao family's young miss naturally wouldn't be so kind. The family also wouldn't allow this kind of indulgence. However, the Hao family didn't care about money. They only wanted the Hao family's young miss to be happy. Not only did the Hao family's young misses' maids take care of these small animals, even the other family servants often came to help. After a long time, there would naturally be mistakes. Once, after the young miss of the Hao family saved an unknown little beast, the first thing that the little beast did after waking up was to bite off the arm of a housekeeper. Then, it swallowed most of the animals in the small courtyard. Only then did it calmly escape under the vigilance of the Hao family's guards, who were on guard against a great enemy. Fortunately, the Hao family's young miss wasn't in the embroidered building at this time, and thus escaped disaster. Ever since that danger, Squire Hao no longer allowed the Hao family's young miss to take in small animals. However, the Hao family's young miss was after all kind-hearted. When she saw unattended kittens and puppies, she couldn't help but take care of them behind Squire Hao's back. Squire Hao couldn't do anything about it. He could only tell the Hao family's young misses' maids that they were only allowed to take care of and take in common animals. Moreover, once these animals recovered, they had to be released or given away. They absolutely weren't allowed to appear near the embroidered building. Chapter 3195. Another few years passed, and nothing unusual happened. Young Miss Hao's good name was well known in Longevity Town. However, a few days ago, on the third day after Miss Hao met Daoist Xiao, Miss Hao's mood suddenly changed. First, she panicked and asked her maidservant to call Squire Hao over and said some strange things. Then, after Squire Hao left, she seemed to have gone mad. Not only did she cry bitterly, but she also screamed hysterically. In particular, yesterday, Miss Hao no longer ate, nor did she allow anyone to enter the embroidery tower. Not to mention that the food that had been sent in was thrown out. Even the ordinary guards who tried to force their way in were knocked unconscious by some inexplicable thing on the embroidery tower and thrown out. Squire Hao walked around the embroidery building for a day and a night. He couldn't enter the building no matter how hard he tried. He couldn't even see his daughter, so he had to think of another way. At this time, miracles appeared one after another in the Jiangqiao Temple. Squire Hao immediately sent Hao Yulong to the Jiangqiao Temple to ask Xiao Jian to come and subdue the demon. However, because he had to care about his face and Miss Hao's reputation, he didn't dare to make a big fuss. After hearing Hao Yulong's words, Xiao Jian felt a little strange. He looked at the lights of the embroidery tower, and then looked at Hao Yulong. He said in a low voice, "Housekeeper Hao, what you said really makes me confused. Kindness is a good thing. Even Daoist Xiao and the sea god have to protect you. But what does the adoption of small animals have to do with Miss Hao's embroidery building and Miss Hao's strange behavior? Could it be that there are small animals in the embroidery building again? If you don't explain it clearly, how can I subdue the demon?" Unexpectedly, Hao Yulong really didn't say anything. He pointed at the offering table in front of him with a wry smile and said, "Daoist Xiao, don't you know better than me if there are any strange things? Besides, you can't always listen to me, right? If you want to subdue the demon, you have to do it first, right? The monks in the Shaojin Temple have been practicing for a long time." Okay. When Xiao Jian heard this, he knew that if he did not show his true ability, Housekeeper Hao might not say anything. Therefore, he nodded his head and walked a few steps to the altar. He took down the cloth bag from his shoulder and carefully placed it beside the altar. Then he took out a pen, a bell, and the peachwood sword that he often held. After finishing his preparations, Xiao Jian turned his head and said to Xiao Hua, "Fellow Daoist, please come and protect this poor Daoist." And Xiao Hua responded. He looked at the things on the altar and was somewhat puzzled. He didn't understand what kind of magic power these things had. However, Xiao Hua still walked to Xiao Jian's side. After waiting for Xiao Hua to stand still, Xiao Jian turned towards the embroidery building and stretched out his hand. He lowered his head and took a deep breath. Then he raised his head and lightly reprimanded like spring thunder. Then he slapped his hand on the altar and very skillfully caught the brush that was slapped. Chua! The brush streaked across the air and accurately touched the ink that had been ground beforehand. When the tip of the brush was full of ink, Rise. Xiao Jian waved his hand again. His left hand landed on a piece of yellow paper on the altar like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Another few crisp sounds of paper. Several pieces of yellow paper were grasped in Xiao Jian's hands. Boundless Tao. Lord Xiao Jian chanted a Tao name. The brush streaked through the air, and several drops of ink danced in the air. Xiao Hua watched as the brush landed on the yellow paper in Xiao Jian's left hand. Between the dancing of dragons and dancing of phoenixes, rune-like words appeared on the yellow paper. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. There were continuous light sounds. One after another, realistic yellow runes appeared in Xiao Jian's brush. Then, Xiao Jian threw them one after another in the air, and they slowly floated down. Xiao Hua's heart also shattered along with these yellow runes. Damn, this is the hidden immortal continent's yellow runes? Xiao Hua was dumbstruck. He was somewhat unable to understand. Could it be that the hidden immortal continent's Taoist yellow runes are so easy to refine? Xiao Hua did not believe that Xiao Jian could refine yellow runes so easily. However, he also could not believe it. If Xiao Jian could not, how could he use it in such an important occasion? Moreover, looking at Xiao Jian's familiar appearance, it was far from the first or second time he used it. While Xiao Hua was flabbergasted, Xiao Jian continuously drew many yellow runes, and these yellow runes scattered all over the ground. Even Hao Yulong's face was filled with respect and piety at this moment. Quick, at the end, Xiao Jian threw a handful of yellow runes into the air. Then, with sharp eyes and nimble hands, he threw the brush in his hand onto the sacrificial table. His right hand reached out and grabbed the peachwood sword. His left hand even grabbed, and the bell also fell into his hand. Following Xiao Jian's so-called incantation, the bell rang incessantly. Following the ringing of the bell, Xiao Jian stepped on the Big Dipper in front of the sacrificial table, and the peachwood sword in his hand began to dance. In particular, Xiao Jian's mouth was chanting an indescribable incantation again. At the beginning, Xiao Hua's brows were tightly knitted. He was very puzzled. However, after a moment, the corner of Xiao Hua's mouth once again carried a smile. Because within Xiao Jian's dance, not only was there no magic power fluctuation, even the sword moves were sloppy and full of flaws. Xiao Hua was confident that he did not need to use any strength. As long as he attacked with one move, he would definitely heavily injure Xiao Jian. However, just as Xiao Hua was feeling disdainful, a strange fluctuation suddenly appeared on the peachwood sword. At this moment he heard Xiao Jian's loud roar. "Tao Sovereign, help me!" Following Xiao Jian's angry roar, the peachwood sword in his hand suddenly became extremely methodical. It was as if it was a type of brilliant sword technique. With a wave of the peachwood sword, it hit the dozen or so yellow runes scattered in front of the sacrificial table. Boom boom, a few faint explosions sounded. The dozen or so yellow runes were all ignited. The sudden appearance of the flames frightened housekeeper Hao. Seeing the flickering flames, Xiao Jian became even more spirited. He actually jumped up from his original spot. His movements were very vigorous and his sword technique was even more wondrous. In just a short moment, the yellow runes that were scattered earlier all flew up. Moreover, they were all pierced and ignited by him one by one. Go! Xiao Jian's figure landed on top of the sacrificial table. The bell in his hand rang loudly and his Taoist robe fluttered. The peachwood sword even pierced the embroidered tower. All the yellow runes turned into fireballs and rushed towards the embroidered tower. Unfortunately, it was unknown whether Xiao Jian's magic power was insufficient or whether the demon within the embroidered tower was too powerful. Those fireballs only flew a few feet and were annihilated before they even touched the embroidered tower. They turned into ashes and scattered in the air. Evil creature! Xiao Jian's body slightly swayed on top of the sacrificial table. As if his magic power was insufficient, he actually jumped down from the sacrificial table. Immortal Elder Xiao Hua naturally reached out his hand to support Xiao Jian, who landed on the ground. Hao Yulong also hurriedly went forward and shouted with some worry. Alas, the demon within the embroidered tower is somewhat strange. Xiao Jian sighed. This old man's magic power is limited. If housekeeper doesn't explain in detail, this old man won't have a detailed countermeasure. I'm afraid that I won't be able to subdue the demon. Hao Yulong was still hesitant. However, he turned his head and looked into the distance. Xiao Jian's movement just now had already attracted the attention of Squire Hao. However, seeing that Xiao Jian's method was ineffective, Squire Hao sat down again. Squire Hao had already seen Hao Yulong's gaze. He seemed to think for a moment, and slightly nodded his head. Alas, after receiving Squire Hao's approval, Hao Yulong sighed. He looked at the embroidered tower and said, "Poor young lady. This matter involves young lady's innocence. Daoist Xiao, you have to swear that you won't speak of this matter to anyone else. This old man can only speak to you." Of course. Xiao Jian naturally also saw Squire Hao nod his head. He patted his own chest and said, "I don't dare to boast about other things, but I'm famous for being tight-lipped in Longevity Town. Since housekeeper Hao invited I here, I swear that I won't speak of this matter to anyone else." "What about this Daoist?" Hao Yulong turned his head and pointed at Xiaohua. It seemed that because Xiaohua was here, Hao Yulong didn't finish his words. Xiaohua unhappily opened his eyes and coldly said, "Isn't it just a little white rabbit? What's the fuss about? You even want this old man to swear. Do you think it's worth it?" Ah! Hao Yulong's face was full of shock when he heard this. Even his hands were trembling. You actually know?" Unfortunately, Xiaohua closed his eyes again and ignored him. Hee, housekeeper Hao. Xiao Jian's heart was clear. He laughed and said, "Since that's the case in I's opinion, there's no need to swear, right?" Hao Yulong looked at Xiaohua suspiciously, and then at the embroidered tower. He really didn't know how Xiaohua knew that there was a white rabbit in the embroidered tower. He could only nod and say, "It wasn't until after the incident that Master flew into a rage and interrogated young lady's maidservants one by one. Only then did he know that last summer, young lady saved an injured little white rabbit. Young lady was reluctant to give this rabbit away. She even loved it and kept it by her side every day and night. When the incident happened, only that rabbit was by young lady's side. So it's like that." Hao Yulong didn't say much and Xiao Jian didn't ask too much. However, Xiao Jian already knew that this rabbit was definitely not ordinary. Young lady Hao had been with this rabbit for so long that the word innocence had long been lost along with the river water of Liao River. This was the most important thing that Squire Hao was worried about. This was also the reason why Squire Hao didn't dare to make it public. If it wasn't for the fact that he was at his wit's end, Squire Hao definitely wouldn't have invited Shaojin Temple, Jiangqiao Temple, and Buddhist sect to his home. As for Chongqing Academy, Xiao Jian naturally knew that although the academy also had methods to subdue demons, there were many students in the academy. These young students were different from the monks of Shaojin Temple and Jiangqiao Temple. Not only did they come from all over Chongqing town, but they also had close ties with the young people of Chongqing town. If they subdued the demon, young lady Hao's matter would inevitably be exposed. Then, young lady Hao's future marriage and other matters would inevitably be troublesome. Xiao Jian laughed for no reason. Not to mention that he had the senior Xiaohua behind him. It seemed that subduing any rabbit wouldn't be a problem. Even if he failed today, Squire Hao's hush money wouldn't be small, right? This kind of money thing that Xiao Jian liked the most. Chapter 3196. Taoist priest seeing the smile on Xiao Jian's face, Hao Renjia's heart relaxed. He hurriedly said, "If it's possible, could you please cast the spell again? This little one will go and report to the master right away. Don't be anxious." Xiao Jian pulled Hao Renjia back and said with a smile, "Steward Hao, the matter of subduing the demon should be left to I. Furthermore, you have seen that the demon in the embroidered building is very powerful. Even if I cast the spell again, I don't know how effective it will be. If you report it now, I won't be able to subdue the demon. Wouldn't that make Steward Hao happy for nothing?" "All right." Seeing that it wasn't Xiaohua who was casting the spell, Hao Renjia frowned and said, "Then please hurry up." Before Hao Renjia could finish his words, a few extremely high-pitched noises came from the embroidered building. As soon as the noises entered Xiao Jian's ears, the smile on his face instantly disappeared, and was replaced by a kind of pain. At the same time, the osmanthus tree in front of the embroidered building shook violently. "Go, why are you all standing there stupidly? You only know how to watch from the sidelines. Quickly go and save the young miss." Steward Hao seemed to have endured for a long time, and finally couldn't bear it anymore. He didn't have the nerve to scold the monks of the Shaojin temple, so he could only vent his anger on his own family's soldiers. Yes, a man behind Steward Hao answered. He turned his head and pointed at a few of his family's soldiers. He shouted, "You all hurry up." "And you?" Steward Hao suddenly jumped up from his chair and kicked that man's leg. "Why would I raise you? Hurry up." "Yes, master." That family's soldier didn't dare to be negligent. He stretched out his hand and pulled out a padao from his waist. When the other family's soldiers behind him came to his side, he whispered a few orders. 4 or 5 people roared from all directions of the embroidered building, and actually jumped into the air, rushing toward the tightly shut window at the bottom floor of the embroidered building. Bam bam, with a few crisp sounds, the window was smashed open by several people. The 5 of them fell into the embroidered building at almost the same time. However, before they could stabilize themselves, a faint brilliance flashed, and another black shadow flashed in front of everyone's eyes. Ah ah ah, with a few screams, the 5 of them flew out of the window at the entrance of the building. Their faces were all covered in blood, and their chests were all stained with fresh blood. "Useless things. Why would I hire you?" Steward Hao's face was ashen. He didn't care about the monks of the Shaojin temple, who had forgotten to knock the wooden fish. "Master, I've tried my best." The guard who fell down tried his best to get up and shouted, "The people inside are not ordinary people." Umitba. At this moment, Ming Fa stood up from the Zen platform and chanted Buddha's name. "Steward Hao, don't worry. Watch this poor monk subdue the demon." "Thank you, master." Steward Hao suppressed his anger and forced a smile. He cupped his hands and said, "These bald donkeys have been whispering here for a long time, right?" Xiao Jian immediately fanned the flames and asked Steward Hao. "Yes, I sent the goose feather letter to the Shaojin temple. I thought Zen Master Ming you would come in person. But only Zen Master Ming Fa came before the sky turned dark. Master didn't like it at first, but he brought a lot of monks with him. He also said that an expert came to the temple and Abbot Ming you had to stay in the temple to welcome him. Zen Master Ming Fa also said that an expert came to our longevity town. No matter what happened, the Shaojin temple would be able to solve it. That's why Master was happy. However, they knocked here for a long time. The wooden fish was about to break, but they didn't seem to have any effect. The Buddhist sect's dharma is naturally incomparable. But this Shaojin temple is only a wild fox Zen. I won't hide it from Steward Hao. I have been fighting with Shaojin temple's Zen Master Mingyu for a long time. If you don't believe me, you can go to Steward Lu's house and ask. Last time, these bald donkeys were defeated by I. Xiao Jian immediately said. This Ming Fa is a monk. How can he be a Zen master? I'm afraid that he doesn't have any tricks up his sleeves. When he can no longer pretend, he will have no choice but to come down and let I show off my skills. Cough cough. Steward Hao didn't know how to answer. He could only cough twice and say with a smile, let's see Shaojin temple's methods. Yes, this old man will wait and see. Xiao Hua, who was behind Xiao Jian, said proudly. Buzz buzz. Just as Xiao Jian was slandering the little gold temple, Ming Fa, who was on the Zen platform, reached out his hand and took out an alms bowl. The alms bowl was purple gold in color and looked very simple. Ming Fa then began to chant. At the same time, the dozen or so monks below the Zen platform also stopped knocking the wooden fish. They began to chant along with Ming Fa's Zen voice. Following the rhythm of yin and yang, strands of Buddhist light gradually gathered around the alms bowl. Rise. After a moment, Ming Fa raised his hand and formed a Buddhist seal. His slightly weak magic power rushed into the alms bowl. The alms bowl flashed with a faint Buddhist light and slowly flew into the sky. Ming Fa actually has this move. Xiao Jian couldn't help but cry out in surprise. As he spoke, Xiao Jian didn't forget to look at Xiao Hua. Seeing that Xiao Hua's expression didn't change, he felt relieved. Seeing that the alms bowl was getting higher and the Buddhist light on it was getting stronger and stronger, Steward Hao couldn't help but feel a new hope in his heart. The alms bowl flew over the embroidered building and stopped in the air. Looking at Ming Fa, who was casting the spell, his forehead was already covered in sweat. It was clear that controlling such a Buddhist weapon was beyond his ability. Withdraw. Looking at the alms bowl, Ming Fa clenched his teeth and the Buddhist seal in his hand changed again. Wung, the alms bowl began to tremble. The Buddhist light on the alms bowl trembled and overflowed. It was like a lotus flower was gradually blooming layer by layer. When the lotus flower was extremely bright, a suction force came from the alms bowl. The suction force formed a pillar of light that covered the inside of the embroidered building. Wung, there was another strong hissing sound. Boom, boom. Along with the hissing sound, there were another series of loud noises. The previously closed windows of the embroidered building were completely shaken open by the hissing sound. Even a few of the window frames were knocked out of the air. At the same time, the Buddhist light on the alms bowl was also fiercely flickering. A string of sparks came out from the edge of the pillar of light, creating a sizzling sound. Hiss! All of a sudden, a shadow of 10 feet in size suddenly appeared above the embroidered tower. The light above the embroidered tower flickered with a whoosh sound. The shadow actually ignored the embroidered tower and rushed straight into the night sky. It directly hit the end of the light beam, the shaking alms bowl. Boom! There was a loud sound. The Buddhist light on the alms bowl disappeared, and it immediately fell from the sky. Puff puff! All of the chanting monks spat out blood and curled up. Even Ming Fa, who was on the meditation platform, was also dispirited and listless. He powerlessly watched the alms bowl fall to the ground with a clang sound. It rolled a few times and no longer made any sound. When he looked at the embroidered building again, he didn't know when the shadow had disappeared. The entire embroidered building was once again exposed to light. However, the windows were all wide open and not tightly shut like before. Farther on the embroidered building, a mournful voice called out, "You old man, don't do useless things here. It's better to quickly pack up and evacuate all of my Hao clan's 100+ people from Longevity Town. If we're late, no one will be able to leave Longevity Town alive." Daughter. When Minister Hao heard this, he couldn't help but cry. What's wrong with you? How can you still be so stubborn? How in the world are you so fascinated by that rabbit? Daughter, although your mother left early, father and you relied on each other for survival. Father has been kind to others all his life. Daughter, you're also kind to others. How can the heavens bear to treat my Hao clan like this? Father, if you don't leave now, I'll die in front of you today. Following a mournful cry, a face full of tears appeared in front of the broken window. Wasn't this the Hao clan's young miss that Xiaohua saw on the streets of Longevity Town that day? However, the Hao clan's young miss was still sitting in a wooden wheelchair, her body just barely reaching the window. This Hao clan's young miss is actually unable to walk. Xiaohua immediately understood. What a pity. Daughter. Can you not force father? Minister Hao cried out with a heart-wrenching voice. It's fine if you stay with it. Father would rather not ask about it, but this old man can't not see you. If you insist on leaving the Hao clan with it and leaving Longevity Town, how will you survive? What will you eat? What will you drink? You can't eat radishes and cabbages, right? Father Hao clan's young Mrs. face was ashen. Why won't you listen to your daughter's words? How is your daughter as unbearable as you say? Your daughter only wants to tell father that Longevity Town is facing a great disaster. Other people's daughters might not be able to persuade you, but our Hao clan's daughter must say it. Even if father sees your daughter as a lunatic, your daughter must tell father. These few days. I'm afraid it's the final deadline. If father still doesn't agree, your daughter can only let it kidnap father. Daughter, don't say any more. Minister Hao sighed. Father knows you've been charmed by that Uncle Rabbit. You only listen to its words. You only want to leave Longevity Town. That's why you made up such a lie. Don't be afraid. Shaojin Temple's monks and Jiangqiao Temple's Taoist priests are useless. Father will go beg Longevity Academy's principal Zhu right now. Father will sacrifice his face. I'll save you from this Uncle Rabbit's hands. Father, you must not go. Hao clan's young miss was very anxious. She used her hand to push against the window and shouted, "If you leave even half a step, your daughter will jump down from upstairs." Chirp chirp, several horrifying screeches rang out. The previously broken window frames and other objects were suddenly broken and thrown high into the air. Several housewives and servant girls covered their ears in pain and squatted on the ground, paralyzed like mud. Those family guards also threw their weapons on the ground, doing their best to cover their ears. Aside from Xiaohua, the others all showed pain on their faces, their bodies trembling. Chapter 3197. A white rabbit suddenly appeared on the windowsill where Hao family's young miss was. This rabbit was over 2 feet long, and its entire body was snow white. The rabbit's fur all over its body stood up like sharp swords, and its 2 ears were pointed straight at the night sky. Even its 2 scarlet red eyes were currently as ferocious as blood. You or Hao family's young miss saw this and hastily shouted. Squeak squeak, the rabbit suddenly stood up, and its 2 feet long body suddenly expanded, as if it was being inflated. A stream of black gas was blown out from the rabbit's mouth, like a sharp arrow. It rushed towards the monk of the small golden temple who had just taken out the alms bowl. As the black gas rushed out, the rabbit's body shrank once again. It was even smaller than before, and the rabbit's erect fur slowly became docile. Seeing that the black gas rushed towards the monks' heads, it immediately turned into a ball and slowly fell towards them. Ming Fa and the others knew that this black gas was powerful. However, they were already injured earlier and had no strength left from the rabbit's scream. Even if they wanted to escape now, they were unable to do so. Seeing the black gas fall, all the monks were entangled by the black gas. In a moment, their bodies tilted and they no longer moved. Damn it! Xiao Jian forcibly resisted the rabbit's sharp cry. Seeing that the monks were no longer moving, the rabbit turned its head and seemed to be looking at him. He couldn't help but cry out, and his body retreated a few steps. However, what caused Xiao Jian to be greatly shocked was that the moment he retreated, the rabbit that had already relaxed immediately stood up with a hoo sound. The rabbit's fur stood up again, and the whiskers at the corners of its mouth rapidly trembled up and down, as if it was facing a great enemy. Don't panic, Xiaohua's calm voice sounded in Xiao Jian's ears again. Isn't this the time for the Temple of Tidal River to become famous? This old man has 2 little things here that can restrain this rabbit. Xiao Jian's heart trembled as he immediately remembered Xiaohua's power. After he calmed down a little, he immediately saw that a black and a yellow object had appeared on the table in front of him at an unknown time. One was a black dog and the other was a yellow sable. You only need to give orders to these 2 little things. However, remember not to take this rabbit's life. Xiaohua instructed again. Go! Xiao Jian was the best at taking advantage of the situation. Hearing Xiaohua's order, he didn't hesitate at all. He waved his Taoist robe and took out the 2 spiritual beasts, as if he was the one who took them out. He shouted, Take down this rabbit. Woof! That black dog was Xiaohe. Xiaohe barked and the entire building became silent. Then Xiaohe jumped into the air and flew towards the building. Following Blackie's lead, Goldie followed suit with a flick of its tail. Looking at the 2 little things that hadn't changed much in the past 100 years, Xiaohua felt a trace of happiness in his heart. It was impossible to say that 100 years of quiet cultivation wasn't boring, especially for Xiaohua's state of mind. After experiencing the abandonment of the Imperial Thunder Sect, the coldness of Fairy Hongxia, and the helpless death of Shuexiuehe, his heart had reached the lowest point in his life. Although Shuexiuehe and helplessness had a great opportunity after their deaths, they were still dead. When Xiaohua was cultivating, fretting, and being invaded by his inner demons, he would enter the dark side of the space to explore. Moreover, the stone statue of Zhang Xiaohua that accompanied Shuexiuehe's soul also represented Xiaohua, but in the end, it still hurt Xiaohua's heart. In this extremely low point, Xiaohua's only hope was Xiaohuang and Xiaohe. The attachment of the 2 little guys, that kind of unwillingness to leave, made Xiaohua feel warmth. At the same time, Xiaohua's love for them also made Xiaohua pass through the danger when he first entered seclusion. It could be said that Xiaohua, Xiaohuang, and Xiaohe were the pitiful grandfather and grandmother who depended on each other for survival. At the same time, it was this rare warmth that didn't cause any changes in Xiaohua's heart due to the upheaval. The heart of that kind and simple country, youth still existed in the rising perfected Xiao. Naturally, after 100 years of cultivation, Xiaohua benefited a lot. Xiaohuang, Xiaohe, And even little Silver had also undergone indescribable changes. At the moment, Xiao He and Xiao Huang still looked so cute, but a change was already brewing in their bodies. This change was something Xiao Hua didn't know about and couldn't predict. What Xiao Hua knew was that this change needed to be accumulated and induced. If he simply stayed in the space, he was afraid that he would never be able to change. Therefore, Xiao Hua was really ashamed to make a move on a rabbit that had just entered the market, but these two little things were just right. Chirp chirp. Just as Xiao Hua was sighing with emotion, the rabbit had already moved. There was a strong neigh, like a powerful storm, with the embroidered building as the center, blowing in all directions. Dozens of family guards approached the embroidered building and cried out in unison. They curled up on the ground, blood starting to flow out of their ears. The leaves on the osmanthus tree fluttered down and scattered all over the open space in front of the embroidered building. Woof woof. Xiao He was furious and barked wildly. That sound was very strange, and it cancelled out the rabbit's neigh. Squire Hao and the others, who were already scared witless, weren't hurt by the rabbit. Xiao Yu, seeing the rabbit flip out, Miss Hao's expression changed drastically, and she hurriedly called out. Unfortunately, the rabbit's eyes were already red at that moment. Seeing that its neigh wasn't effective, it immediately kicked off with both legs and pounced at Xiao Huang. Its two front teeth, which were usually used to bite carrots, were now shining frighteningly brightly. Sure enough, a rabbit would bite when cornered. It really wasn't wrong. The rabbit was very strong. Even from far away, Xiao Hua could hear the sound of the wind. Furthermore, the rabbit was also very fast, and in the blink of an eye, it had pounced in front of Xiao Huang. Hee, this rabbit actually knows how to bully the weak and fear the strong. Xiao Hua laughed. Ever since it had shown up, Xiao Huang had been putting on airs and disdaining to fight with the rabbit. It had always been Xiao He charging in front. Seeing that Xiao He was very powerful, the rabbit didn't dare to bite Xiao He, and only then did it charge at Xiao Huang. What the rabbit didn't expect was that Xiao Huang's speed was even faster. Just as the rabbit stretched out its fangs and was about to bite, Xiao Huang swung its large tail and swept past like the wind. Its small claws even left a trace of blood on the rabbit's body. Woof. Moreover, without waiting for the rabbit to neigh, Xiao He's figure was even faster. Like a black lightning bolt, it streaked across the rabbit's back, and where its claws passed, it also left behind a few strands of rabbit fur. GG. The rabbit's neigh was filled with grief. Its figure turned around in midair, and turned towards the osmanthus tree. Xiao Hua saw clearly from the side that the rabbit couldn't fly, but its figure was strong and healthy. The osmanthus tree was now bare. When the rabbit landed on the tree, drops of blood slid down its back, and dripped onto the tree trunk. The rabbit's figure was constantly trembling, and it wasn't clear whether it was because of fear or because it was trembling. Xiao Yu. Miss Hao screamed in distress. Quickly go and save Miss. Only now did Squire Hao come to his senses and hastily shouted. However, in front of the embroidery building, the dozen or so monks were already dead, and the dozens of guards were also paralyzed. Who could still move? Seeing that Xiao Jian's legs were somewhat soft, Xiao Hua rubbed his nose and said with a smile, Daoist Xiao, I will go and ask Miss Hao to come down. Fellow Daoist, please. Xiao Jian raised his leg. His legs were indeed somewhat weak, but he wasn't particularly afraid. This was precisely the power of the rabbit's neigh, and Xiao Jian's body was unable to resist it. Immortal Elder, many thanks. Housekeeper Hao was almost crying tears of joy at the side. Seeing Xiao Hua step into the embroidery building and steadily walk up the stairs, the rabbit became anxious. It rushed out from the osmanthus tree, wanting to rush into the embroidery building. However, with Xiao Huang and Xiao He blocking it, how could the rabbit succeed? However, the rabbit's body once again appeared with blood several times, and the rabbit didn't even leave the osmanthus tree by 1 foot. Xiao Hua went up the embroidery building. This was a very clean room. The reason why it was clean was not because it was clean, but because there were very few things. A few potted plants were placed around the room, a dressing table, a few chairs, and a boudoir that was blocked by a curtain. Apart from these, there was only Miss Hao sitting on the chair. The chair was very big, and Miss Hao could only reveal half of her head. On both sides of the chair, There were 2 wheels that were much bigger than ordinary wheels, blocking Miss Hao's 2 arms. Xiao Hua casually glanced a few times and warmly said, "Miss Hao, Big Brother Taoist, Big Brother Taoist." Miss Hao was only concerned about the rabbit on the osmanthus tree, and didn't notice Xiao Hua's arrival. When she heard Xiao Hua's voice, she looked back with difficulty and immediately shouted, "This servant knows that you are Taoist Zhao's new disciple. This servant begs you, Xiao, you won't harm anyone." It is usually very obedient, but Taoist Xiao and the monks of Shaojin Temple forced it. GG. At this moment, the rabbit screeched again. This time, apart from the sound of pain, it was also frantic. Miss Hao no longer cared to talk to Xiao Hua and quickly turned her head. On top of the osmanthus tree, the rabbit that had just shriveled up was now swollen again. And its body was even bigger, more than 3 feet. "You see," Xiao Hua still warmly said, "a rabbit is a rabbit, a monster is a monster. They will never be human. You said that it won't hurt people, but what about the monks of Shaojin Temple? I'm afraid that they have no breath now, right? More than 10 lives. They are gone just like that. Yes, Xiaoyu is a monster. It is not human, but it has more feelings than humans. It knows what I am thinking better than humans." Miss Hao saw the rabbit's situation, and her tears flowed down. She almost hysterically shouted, "I lost my mother when I was young, and my father didn't like me when I was young. At first, I didn't know what was going on, but when I grew up, I finally understood. It was because I was naughty when I was young, running around on the street. In order to save me from the carriage, my mother used her body to block the horse's hooves. And I was also run over by the carriage, and my legs couldn't move anymore. After I knew the truth, I didn't dare to be naughty anymore, and wholeheartedly tried to please my father. But no matter what I did, my father would not be happy. He always forced me to do things that I didn't like. And he never treated me as a human. Look at me." Chapter 3198. How Family's young miss hammered her own legs and shouted, "He was afraid of losing face, so he didn't let me show my face in public since I was young. He never let others know that I don't know how to walk on my own. In the past, I had a girl who, in order to make me happy, secretly took me out of the house. I was so happy, I finally had a few people to talk to me. However, when father found out about this, he actually beat Hong Er to death. Do you know? When I heard Hong Er's miserable screams, I really wanted to throw myself down from this building. I was the one who caused Hong Er's death, poor child. From then on, I didn't dare to casually talk to the girls in the house. They also avoided me. If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't come here, they definitely wouldn't get close to me. As for me, I could only raise some small animals and let them accompany me. But even if it was these pitiful little animals, father didn't let them go. He also beat them to death." The more How Family's young miss spoke, the more excited she became. Her voice spread far and wide. The rabbit on the osmanthus tree was still accumulating power, as if it didn't have the confidence to deal with Xiao Huang and Xiao He. "Do you know the feeling of no one talking to you? Do you know the loneliness of everyone avoiding you? Do you know the feeling of looking out the window in the dark and seeing the insects chirping softly, because of you?" This Xiao Hua touched his nose. He really didn't think that this seemingly gentle and quiet girl would have so much pain in her heart. "Do you know? If I didn't know the cause of my mother's death, I would have long secretly vowed to live for my mother. I definitely wouldn't let down the life my mother gave up for me. I would have left this world long ago. I would have left Longevity Town long ago. I really hate everything here. I hate the lifeless lives here." How Family's young miss face was covered in tears. Sigh. Hearing this, Xiao Hua's heart was also indescribably sour. There is never a lack of love in this world. It can be seen everywhere. It's like this in Xiaoyu continent. It's also like this in Hidden Immortal continent. There is love among cultivators. There is also love in the secular world. How Family's young miss shed tears and looked at the rabbit outside the window. She said again, "When my life was incomparably bleak, I met Xiaoyu. At that time, I only treated it as a pitiful little white rabbit. I helped it bandage and heal its wounds, just like all the other little animals in the past. But Xiaoyu was different from other small animals. It seemed to understand what I was talking about, and what I was thinking. Although it didn't talk to me at first, I already liked it. I can't live without it. I kept Xiaoyu behind my father's back, until one day, I suddenly seemed to understand its words. Do you know? The surprise at that time was definitely the only surprise in my life. The sunlight on that day was definitely the most brilliant day of my life. I saw hope in Xiaoyu, and from that day onwards, I had a new life. Gigi the rabbit on the osmanthus tree suddenly erupted. A dense black demonic aura was spat out from its mouth. It was like a fist that struck towards Blackie. Woof, the demonic aura seemed to be several times stronger than before. It was the rabbit's full power attack. However, when Blackie barked, the black aura suddenly dissipated as if it had encountered a gale. Goldie swung its large tail, and instantly arrived next to the rabbit. At the same time, it swung its tail again. Boom! It hit the rabbit's back. The rabbit spat out the black aura. It had already shrunk a lot, and was unable to deal with Goldie's attack. The rabbit's body was sent flying from the osmanthus tree. Pum! It landed on the altar where Xiao Jian was drawing the talisman earlier. The rabbit seemed to be extremely weak. It actually laid on the altar and spasmed a few times. It struggled to get up but was unable to do so. The rabbit used all its strength to twist its neck, and did its best to look at the embroidery building. Its crimson eyes actually had tears. Goldie and Blackie quickly descended and ferociously pounced on the rabbit. It was like a yellow wind and black lightning. The stunned Xiao Jian on the side suddenly woke up and hurriedly shouted, "Don't kill it, don't kill it." The two little things seemed to have heard something. They both landed on top of the altar, and one of them rolled in the air. One stuck out its tongue and spun around the altar. The other used its large tail to sweep its fur, as if it was tidying up the mess it made when it was bitten. Xiaoyu Miss Hao's heart ached. She reached out and leaned against the window to look. She really wanted to cry. Woof, woof. Blackie stopped spinning and growled at the rabbit. The rabbit's gaze shifted back from Miss Hao and also growled in a low voice. "I beg you, brother Taoist," Miss Hao begged again. "Even though Xiaoyu is a demonic creature like you said, it really doesn't have the heart to harm people." "Oh right." Miss Hao seemed to have thought of something. She said as if she was grasping at straws. "Xiaoyu left Immortality Town a few days ago. When it came back, it told me to leave Immortality Town as soon as possible. It said that Immortality Town is in big trouble. In a few days, Immortality Town will be wiped out, and there will be no one left." I didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly told Father about this. But Father didn't believe me and even said that I was crazy. He wanted to take Xiaoyu away from me. If Father didn't send people over to endanger Xiaoyu's life, how could Xiaoyu be so crazy? I don't understand. Xiaoyu was so kind to pass the news back. Why didn't Father believe it? Why did he think that bringing Xiaoyu with me was a disgrace to the Hao family? Why did he think that I wanted to leave this family? I did want to leave. I wanted to do so many years ago. But for Mother, I wanted to stay at home. I didn't want those second and third mothers to make the house a mess and not see Mother's shadow. You're right. Xiaohua looked at this pitiful child and said in a low voice, "You've already suffered a lot, and you carry a lot of expectations. You're not only living for yourself, you're also living for the mother who died for you. That's why you should live a better life than others, a life more exciting than others. But your life isn't just your life, it's also your father's life. You're the eldest miss of the Hao family, so you have to bear the Hao family's reputation. Your father doesn't let you show your face in public and doesn't let others know that you can't move your legs. It's not just because of your Hao family's reputation, it's also your own reputation, your future, your happiness. You can't just look at your father's actions from your own point of view. You have to look at his actions from your father's point of view." Xiaohua still said warmly, "The animals you raised weren't wrong. Your father didn't care about you at first, right? He was probably very indulgent, right? But didn't something happen later on? Didn't a servant get hurt? If it wasn't because your father was afraid that you'd get hurt, why would he kill all those animals? Now, it's been a few years, and you've started raising animals again. Your father didn't seem to ask much, right? Also, don't tell me that you've never sat in the sedan chair to relax, and that no students have ever brought gifts to see you?" Xiaohua thought for a moment and asked again. Hearing this, How Family's young miss got angry again and said angrily, "Every time I went out, my father strictly instructed me not to leave the sedan chair. And every time a student came, my father also made me sit in the chair and not move. I understand that he wants to marry me off earlier, and those shifty-eyed students, which one of them didn't come from my father's family property. You'd better come down with me." Xiaohua looked at the rabbit on the altar and said in a low voice, "Your Xiaoyu's life isn't in danger. Daoist Zhao's spirit beast knows its limits." "Really?" How Family's young miss was almost crying tears of joy. Can I walk out of Longevity Town?" How Family's young miss was immediately dejected. "Everything is possible." Xiaohua smiled, pushed the wooden wheelchair, and slowly walked out of the embroidery building. The window of the embroidery building was like paper, and as Xiaohua walked down step by step from the air, How Family's young miss was like a fairy who fell into the mortal world. And Xiaohua, who was pushing her from behind, had a kind of holy luster on his compassionate face. How Family's young miss almost couldn't believe that she flew down from the embroidery building. That Minister Hao and the others who still had some sanity were almost shocked. When Xiaohua pushed How Family's young miss in front of Minister Hao didn't even dare to breathe loudly. "Minister Hao," Xiaohua said with a smile, "you heard your daughter's words just now. Do you have anything to say?" "Daughter?" Seeing his daughter appear alive in front of him, Minister Hao couldn't help but cry. Ignoring the filth on his body, he rushed over and hugged How Family's young miss in his arms. "Father is sorry. Father only cared about his own face, only wanted to give you the best, only wanted to arrange your future life, only wanted to let you live the good life that your mother wanted you to live. He never thought about what you thought. Do you know why I didn't let you go out? The most important thing isn't my face, it's your marriage. If other people knew that you couldn't move, who would marry you? If they coveted our family's property, even if you married into our family, when father gets old, wouldn't you still be bullied? You see, father didn't even dare to invite Chongqing Academy's principal Zhu over today. That's because father already asked him to find a good match for you in the academy. This rabbit's matter definitely can't be known by others. Moreover, that girl you said was beaten to death by father. You only saw her bring you out, only saw her treat you well, but what you didn't know was that she relied on your love for her to point fingers in front of other girls. And even said that you couldn't move inside and outside the mansion. Even father only beat her to death because father found out that she wanted to collude with evil thieves to kidnap you. Father had no other choice. Chapter 3199. Although there are a lot of ugly things in this world, there are also a lot of beautiful things. Xiaohua smiled. You only stayed in How Family and didn't go out, only relying on your own thoughts. You don't even know your father's true thoughts. How could you know about Longevity Town? Outside of Longevity Town, there is still Shi Country. Outside of Shi Country, there is still Hidden Immortal Continent. There are a lot of beautiful things. They will make you intoxicated. They will make you feel that being alive is truly a happy thing. They will also let you know that the gift your mother gave you is something that others can't hope for. Father hearing her father take the initiative to apologize to her and say so many difficulties, all for her sake, How Family's young miss couldn't hold it in anymore. Knowing that she had too many misunderstandings, too many mistakes, she immediately burst into tears. Seeing the two hugging and crying, Xiaohua smiled. He walked over to Ming Fa and the other monks, lowered his head and looked at them a few times, then clapped his hands and stood up. After that, he looked at the people lying on the ground near Embroidery House, then walked to Xiao Jian's side. The two of them whispered a few words, and the conversation between Little Black and the rabbit on the offering table ended. How was it? Xiaohua asked in his heart. Father Little Black said in a simple and honest manner. This fellow has honestly confessed. Sweat, Little Black's words almost made Xiaohua's forehead sweat. What did this have to do with anything? However, Little Black still said. It said it's called Little You, it's an honest rabbit. It has never harmed anyone. A few years ago it was jealous of a rabbit hedgehog. Stop. Xiaohua really didn't expect Little Black to say so many unknown words, and hurriedly asked. Little Black, this honest confession, this jealous of a girl. Where did you learn it from? What's wrong? Father, did the rabbit say it itself? Little Black replied very strangely, "Is this guy right? Do you want the boy to teach it a lesson again?" "No need." Xiaohua helplessly smiled bitterly. These words were probably said by that glib-tongued rabbit, right? No wonder how families young miss liked this rabbit so much. "Yes, father." Little Black continued. "The rabbit was injured by a group of hedgehogs. That's why it met Coachman?" "Oh, 'cause is the one with the limp. The rabbit's leg was broken by someone, but it slowly recovered under the care of this coachman. It felt that this coachman was quite good, so it stayed by her side." "Get to the point." Xiaohua was a bit impatient. He wasn't interested in how families young miss and the rabbit's complex. "The main point? What's the main point?" Blackie was confused. What did Rabbit mean when he said that Longevity Town would be flooded with blood? Xiaohua asked patiently. Blackie immediately understood and said, "That was the rabbit's own guess. This guy had left Longevity Town a few days ago. He seemed to have gone to visit a friend, but that friend and the people around him were gone. He searched for a long time and finally found someone who was preparing to move." "People?" Xiaohua stared blankly at first, then immediately came to a realization. The people that Xiaohei spoke of were probably those monsters, right? That person told Rabbit that they had received a message. Recently, a group of monsters would come to Longevity Town. These monsters usually eat humans and meat, so they didn't dare to stay in Longevity Town. They had to quickly go somewhere else. Blackie continued to explain. Rabbit knew about this and hurriedly told Cuz. He wanted Cuz to leave Longevity Town to hide. But before the coachman could take it away, the building was surrounded by people. Cuz was in a very bad mood and cried every day. Rabbit didn't know why, but he could only accompany Cuz here and not let anyone in. After listening to Xiaohei's glib tongue, Xiaohua immediately determined that there was a mistake in this information. He was afraid that this rabbit was a bit exaggerated, and the Hao family's young miss named Xiaoxi didn't understand, so she told landlord Hao that there was a mistake, causing a huge misunderstanding. But thinking about how this rabbit actually chose to stay in Embroidery House and Longevity Town for Hao family's young miss, Xiaohua had a whole new level of respect for the rabbit. Thinking of this, Xiaohua suddenly thought of an even more important question and hurriedly asked, "Right, is this rabbit male or female?" "Male or female? What do you mean, father?" Blackie was stunned. "Blackie." Xiaohua looked at Blackie with disdain. He had lived for almost 200 years, but he didn't even know the difference between male and female. Blackie wagged his big tail and methodically replied, "Mother, what is male and female? Boy doesn't know either." "Oh right." Xiaohua slapped his forehead and said with a smile, "Is this rabbit the same as that big white bird you saw before?" "Of course it's not the same," Blackie replied without hesitation. "Damn it, this is bad." Xiaohua already had a bad plan in his heart, but at this moment, his heart couldn't help but thump. Thinking about the rabbit's glib tongue, how families young miss innocence. A big white goose is a big white goose, a rabbit is a rabbit. "Mother, don't tell me you don't even know this?" Blackie said to Xiaohua with some disdain. "Moreover, that big white goose is very powerful. This rabbit is far from it." "Big white goose? How do you know about big white goose?" Xiaohua almost laughed out loud. Looking at Blackie's proud expression, he suddenly asked again. "In the past, there was one by the river in our home," Blackie said very simply. "Hee hee, I forgot." Xiaohua smiled and said to Blackie, "Go ask the rabbit, is it male or female?" "Let Blackie go ask." Blackie wagged his tail. Talking to this rabbit is really embarrassing. Xiaohua was really angry. Just as he was about to scold Blackie, Blackie immediately rushed to the rabbit and cried out a few times. After the rabbit weakly cried out a few times, Blackie hurriedly shouted, "Father, father," the rabbit said, "your servant is naturally female." "Why do you think it's female?" Good. Xiaohua's heart immediately calmed down and said with a smile, "You wait here, no need to pay attention to it." "Yes, father." Little Black immediately flew up from the altar and landed on Xiaohua's left shoulder. Little Yellow naturally wouldn't show any weakness and quickly landed on Xiaohua's right shoulder. That big tail was still swaying on the back of Xiaohua's head. Xiaohua raised his hands and stroked the two little guys. That kind of smile always flowed in his heart. Xiao Hua's gaze naturally fell on the rabbit on the sacrificial table, as well as Hao family's young miss who was sitting on a wooden wheelchair not far away. Xiao Hua also understood the affection between Hao family's young miss and this rabbit. How could he break them apart? Damn it. This Xiao Hua. What is his cultivation level? Seeing the two spirit beasts beating the rabbit into a pulp and being so intimate with Xiao Hua, Xiao Jian's heart was also uncertain. Xiao Hua was like an iceberg in the sea, revealing more and more magical abilities that he didn't know about. Minister Hao, take care of these family soldiers and monks, as well as some fainted servants. Xiao Hua brought the two little guys to Minister Hao's side. Xiao Jian naturally also accompanied them. Xiao Jian looked at the monks with a face full of disdain and said, "These monks are not dead, but they were confused by the demon aura. As for whether they can wake up or not, it will depend on Xiao Jin Temple's methods." Yes. At this time, Minister Hao didn't dare to treat Xiao Jian lightly. He wiped his face with his sleeve and endured the numbness on his body. He hurriedly called the servants who could move outside to call the other servants to clean up the mess near the embroidery building. The Hao family's young miss was naturally thinking about the rabbit on the table. After leaving her father's embrace, she immediately looked at the table. The rabbit there was also looking at the Hao family's young miss pitifully. Daoist the Hao family's young miss looked at Xiao Hua, wanting to say something but hesitated. "Here you go," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "This guy has been taught a lesson today. In the future, he will learn to restrain himself." Seeing the gloomy expression on Minister Hao's face, Xiao Hua hurriedly said, "This is a female rabbit. It has nothing to do with the young Mrs. Innocence." Oh, hearing this, Minister Hao patted his forehead with a very regretful expression. It seemed that he had already neglected the fact that the rabbit was male and female. It was only because of his concern and anxiety that he thought the worst of things. Seeing the Hao family's young miss struggling to turn the wooden wheelchair towards the table, Minister Hao couldn't help but walk over and push his daughter. When the Hao family's young miss turned her head and saw that it was actually her father, the smile on her face was like a lily in the night. The Hao family's young miss reached out to hug the rabbit, but unfortunately, the rabbit was too far away from her and she couldn't reach it. Minister Hao bit his lips and held back his fear. He carefully pulled the rabbit from the table and handed it to the Hao family's young miss. Seeing her father's fear, the Hao family's young miss's heart suddenly softened. It was as if she had returned to her childhood, to that night when she looked at the full moon in the sky and cheerfully asked her father to bring the full moon to her. Her father answered her without hesitation that as long as she grew up, he would definitely pluck the full moon from the sky and give it to her. As she grew up, she knew that her father was just being perfunctory. But now, seeing her father bring the rabbit to her eyes, wasn't it the same as plucking the full moon from the sky? The full moon didn't belong to the rabbit or the full moon. It was her father's love and care for her. Father the Hao family's young miss's tears flowed down again and dripped onto the rabbit. The rabbit endured the pain and leaned its head against the Hao family's young miss's chest like a spoiled child. It's okay. Minister Hao wiped away the Hao family's young miss's tears with heartache and forced a smile. "Tomorrow morning, I'll take you out of the city and we'll go to the manor in the countryside. If you don't want to, we won't take the sedan chair. Let me push you and we'll walk through the town." "I won't go," the Hao family's young miss said with a smile. "I'm still waiting for Brother Daoist to treat my illness. When I can walk, I'll accompany you to the manor in the countryside." "What? The Daoist priest can cure your leg?" Minister Hao almost couldn't believe his ears. Chapter 3200. Hao family's miss smiled sweetly. "Yes, just now Brother Daoist told me personally." Immortal Elder. Squire Hao almost immediately ran in front of Xiao Hua and knelt on the ground, seemingly disregarding his identity as a squire. He cried out, "Immortal Elder, please have mercy and save my daughter." "Get up." Xiao Hua stretched out his hand and pulled Squire Hao up. He said, "Since I have spoken, I will naturally keep my promise. Change your clothes. I will wait for some peace and quiet before we talk." Speaking up to hear, Xiao Hua looked at the sky. "Or I can forget about today. You wait for tomorrow." "Oh no, the day after tomorrow." Come to Jiangqiao Temple. I will take a look at Miss. Immortal Elder, don't go. Hearing that Xiaohua had the intention to leave, Squire Hao hurriedly pulled Xiaohua's sleeve and said anxiously, I will go change my clothes now. Immortal Elder, please wait a moment. My poor daughter has been paralyzed in a chair for so many years. Whether it is me or my daughter, we can't wait any longer. Fine. Xiaohua also didn't like to delay today's matter until tomorrow, so he nodded and said, I will wait here. You go change your clothes. Yes. Squire Hao hurriedly turned to Hao family's miss and said, Daughter, you accompany Immortal Elder. Father will be back soon. Okay, father. Hao family's miss naturally didn't want to wait until the day after tomorrow. As the saying goes, the road to happiness is strewn with setbacks. She was really afraid. Also, Xiaohua raised his hand and took out a thumb-sized pill and handed it to Squire Hao. He said, Dissolve this pill in water. Feed each monk a mouthful and they will wake up. In addition, if possible, please give them some money so that they won't leak this matter. Yes, yes. Squire Hao happily took the pill and said with a smile, I am also worried about this matter. If I send these monks back for no reason, Shaojin Temple's Zen Master Mingyu will definitely not let this matter go. He might even chase after us. Immortal Elder, by doing this, you have eliminated future troubles for me. Many thanks to Senior Immortal. Looking at Xiaohua handing over the pills to Landlord Hao, Xiaojian's face was filled with hidden bitterness. He originally wanted to watch the Shaojin Temple's monks get into trouble, but who would have thought that Xiaohua would raise his hand and save these monks? His plan was in vain. However, Xiaohua was now someone he could only look up to. He didn't dare to obstruct anything and could only watch helplessly. Open your mouth. Xiaohua looked at the rabbit in Miss Hao's arms again. He touched it with his hand and took out a scarlet pill that was smaller than a soybean. He said, You were scratched by Little Yellow and your body has been poisoned. If you don't want to die, take this pill. That rabbit was originally lying weakly in the arms of Hao family's young miss, but when it heard Xiaohua's words, it immediately became spirited. It hastily straightened its rabbit head, clasped its two paws in front of its chest, and bowed up and down. Why do these things look like street ruffians? How can it be a female? Xiaohua looked at the rabbit's behavior, and felt both angry and amused. However, he also knew that the rabbit would never dare to lie to Xiaohei. Thus, with a flick of his hand, the antidote pill flew up. The rabbit very sensitively opened its three-petal-like mouth and deftly caught it. Then, in an instant, it lost all its strength and collapsed in Miss Hao's arms as if its spine had been pulled out. Miss Hao lovingly stroked the rabbit's slightly knotted fur. This rabbit. Xiaohua was speechless. Beside him, Xiaojian also shook his head. Two Immortals' housekeeper Hao Yulong didn't dare to leave. However, he was still extremely afraid of the rabbit, and didn't dare to approach. At this moment, he mustered up his courage and said, Please follow me to the living room to serve tea. My family's master will accompany the Immortals in a moment after changing his clothes. No need to go to the living room. Xiaohua looked at the embroidery building and said, You all quickly clean up the embroidery building. I will help the young miss treat her injuries. Yes, yes. That housekeeper had watched Miss Hao grow up. At this moment, he was so happy that tears flowed down his face. He hastily called a dozen maids and rushed to the embroidery building. It didn't take long for them to finish cleaning up. At this moment, Squire Hao had changed into a new set of clothes and rushed over to accompany Xiaohua to the embroidery building. After the maid placed Hao family's young miss on the bed, Xiaohua carried a chair and sat in front of the bed. He smiled and said to Hao family's young miss, Little girl, this old man didn't correct you just now. You have to remember that this old man isn't some Taoist brother. This old man is much older than your father. I'm more than enough to be your grandfather. Moreover, I'm also a doctor now. As the saying goes, a doctor has the heart of a parent. It won't affect your chastity. Immortal Elder, you're really that old? Miss Hao blushed and couldn't help but ask. Gee, the rabbit at the side naturally made a sound, seemingly agreeing with Xiaohua's words. I can't help it. Xiaohua shrugged. Time forgives no man. In the blink of an eye, I'm already so old. If I didn't have to treat your leg today, I wouldn't be willing to reveal my true age to a little girl. Hee, Immortal Elder is really interesting. Miss Hao couldn't help but laugh. Immortal Elder? Squire Hao at the side smiled and said, I'll accompany you here. You're the savior of my Hao family. What you're worried about doesn't exist. That's right, Senior. Please do it. Xiao Jian knew that there was no need to hide anything at this time. He said in a low voice, I'll wait outside the embroidery building. Yes, Yulong, accompany Daoist Xiao to eat in the front hall. Squire Hao seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly shouted. Daoist Xiao has been busy all night and hasn't eaten a single grain of rice. My Hao estate really doesn't have any etiquette. Yes, I understand. Hao Yulong woke up and hurriedly asked Xiao Jian to follow him downstairs. Immortal Elder, please, Squire Hao smiled and said. Once Immortal Elder is done, I'll accompany Immortal Elder to eat. There's no need. Xiao Hua waved his hand. I've already abstained from eating. You just need to accompany Daoist Xiao well. Yes, I understand. Minister Hao's face was filled with admiration. Xiao Hua looked at Hao family's young miss and said with a serious expression, Young Miss Hao, this old man wants to take a look at your legs. Are you willing? I'm willing. Although Miss Hao knew that what Xiao Hua said was true, she still couldn't help but blush when faced with an 18-year-old youth's face. Xiao Hua heard Miss Hao's answer and didn't hold back. He waved his hand and said to the servant girl beside him, Take Miss Hao's clothes at this point. Xiao Hua's heart moved. He looked to the left and said, Forget it, you can all leave. Only Squire Hao can stay. Immortal Elder Miss Hao naturally knew what Xiao Hua was thinking. She said shyly, I'm not good at walking. My daily bathing is done by Huan. So it's like that. Xiao Hua scratched his head. He didn't do anything for Miss and young master, so he really didn't know about this. He thought for a moment and nodded. Then I'll have to trouble Huan. Rabbit, you can go out with them. Come back in a while. Hearing Xiao Hua's instructions, Rabbit obediently followed Little Yellow and Little Black out of the embroidery building. Seeing Xiao Hua so attentive, although it was a bit inappropriate, Squire Hao was already convinced in his heart. The confidence in his heart increased by a bit. All right, Huan, roll up Miss Hao's clothes to the injured area. Xiao Hua ordered. Yes. That servant girl was the one who accompanied Miss Hao to talk to Yuan Yao in town that day. At this moment, she very deftly rolled up Miss Hao's underwear, revealing the pure white skin inside. Xiao Hua looked at the pure white jade-like legs in front of him, and couldn't help but sigh. Although Miss Hao's legs had extremely good skin, they were still thin and small. They couldn't even compare to a 10-year-old child. An ordinary person could easily grab this thigh. Moreover, the muscles near the thigh had long withered and shrunk inwards. It looked very frightening. My daughter's legs were crushed by a carriage when she was young. Squire Hao's eyes were red as he explained. That carriage was carrying heavy goods. My daughter's leg bones were completely shattered. This one looked everywhere for doctors, but they were helpless. Later on, I asked someone to secretly visit Chongqing Academy. The teachers in the academy also didn't have any good methods. However, they said that although the academy couldn't do it, their sect should have pills that could treat it. However, at that time, this one didn't have such a large family property and couldn't take out the primordial stones they wanted. Later on, this one worked hard to earn money and obtain such a large property. However, my daughter had already grown up and missed the best time to treat her. The immortal masters of Chongyan sect only heard this one time, and didn't see my daughter at all. They only said that they didn't have a shred of certainty. Therefore, this one gave up on this idea. Father, forgive your daughter for being unfilial. Only now do I know what father has done for me. Miss Hao also sighed. You are still young. I'm afraid you don't remember these things. It's fine. In the eyes of parents, how could a child be at fault? Squire Hao immediately found an excuse for Miss Hao. I have a way. Xiao Hua stretched out a finger and pressed on Miss Hao's leg a few times. He then stretched out a few fingers and pinched a few times. He nodded and said, but Squire Hao and Miss Hao's expressions were first overjoyed and then anxious when they heard Xiao Hua's words. They cried out. But what? Immortal Senior, please speak. Miss Hao. Xiao Hua said solemnly. Your father has done enough for you, but because of your willfulness, It has caused so many misunderstandings. Although your father doesn't care, you have to bear the responsibility for all these mistakes. I can treat your legs, but you have to bear the pain with a clear mind. You must know that your stubbornness has brought much more pain to your father than all of this pain. You have to experience your father's pain. Thank you, Immortal Senior, for your help. Miss Howe clenched her teeth and said, "This one has long had this intention." Immortal Senior Squire Howe said anxiously, "My daughter is weak and sickly. I'm afraid she can't bear too much pain. This one is willing to bear it for her." An unpolished jade can't be made into anything, Xiaohua said indifferently. Miss Howe's willfulness and narrow-mindedness are all related to you. This is a good opportunity to let her know. Chapter 3201. Okay, Squire Howe looked at his daughter with heartache. "And with I here you don't have to worry about life and death," Xiaohua calmly said. "I know what I'm doing." "Immortal Elder, please." Miss Howe couldn't bear to see her father's affection and urged. "Okay." Xiaohua agreed and waved his hand. A dozen silver needles appeared in his hand. Then, like lightning, they pierced Miss Howe's face and head one by one. Although Squire Howe didn't know why Xiaohua pierced Miss Howe's head with these silver needles, he didn't dare to say a word. After Miss Howe's head was pierced with the silver needles, Xiaohua pierced them into the various acupuncture points on her legs. Finally, he rubbed his hands and said indifferently, "Are you ready?" Yes, Miss Howe nodded, and the maid Huan Er obediently took out a handkerchief and put it between Miss Howe's teeth. Ka-cha-cha, Xiaohua didn't hesitate to stretch out his hand and grab Miss Howe's thigh. With a bit of force, the broken bones that had already grown together were completely crushed into powder by him. "Ah!" Miss Howe screamed. Her eyes turned white, and she almost fainted from the pain. The handkerchief that was bitten by her teeth was bleeding, and the sweat on her forehead was even bigger than soybeans rolling down Xiaoxi. Squire Howe couldn't help but call out Miss Howe's nickname. His distressed expression was even more painful than his own broken bones. Unfortunately, Miss Howe was in so much pain that she couldn't answer. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, she groaned and said hoarsely, "Immortal Elder, is there another time?" "Yes, there is another time." Xiaohua's eyes flashed as he replied, Immortal Elder, I beg you." Squire Howe couldn't bear to see his daughter suffer. He pulled Xiaohua's robe and collapsed on the ground. He cried and said, "Take everything from this lowly one's house. As long as this lowly one can afford it, please don't let Xiaoxi suffer anymore. This lowly one can't take it anymore." "Fine." Xiaohua picked up Squire Howe and looked at Miss Howe. "Xiaoxi, I also call you by your nickname. You are a kind-hearted child, and I can see clearly why you gave the copper coins to Daoist Xiao. I also know that you have the heart to raise injured animals and seek justice for the girl who was beaten to death. This is the bright side of your heart. However, you haven't been able to be as happy as ordinary people since you were young, and you have too much resentment in your heart. You also have too many misunderstandings about your father. Although I've already made things clear today, there's no guarantee that you won't think differently in the future. Today's pain is to let you know your position in your father's heart. It is also to let this pain that you will never experience in your entire life leave a deep impression on you. In this world, there are no parents who don't love their children." "Immortal Elder, I understand," Miss Howe replied weakly. Then go to sleep. When you wake up, you'll have a new life." Xiaohua waved his hand, and the silver needles on Miss Howe's head were collected into his bosom. Miss Howe's face immediately turned pale again. Xiaohua then reached out and pressed her sleeping acupuncture point, and Miss Howe immediately fell asleep. Kacha-kacha, Xiaohua then reached out and crushed her other thigh bone. Then he took out 2 medicinal pills and melted them with his magic power before applying them on Miss Howe's thigh. When the medicinal pills completely melted into her bones, Xiaohua then fed her another medicinal pill. Finally, he took out another jade bottle and gave it to Squire Howe, saying, "Miss Howe won't wake up or move for the next 27 days. Feed her a medicinal pill every 9 days. During this period, don't move Miss Howe at all. On the evening of the 27th day, ask a doctor to come and take a look. If Miss Howe's leg bones are completely healed, then don't worry about it. If Miss Howe's leg bones aren't healed, Then let the doctor fix it so that when Miss Hao wakes up, it won't affect the healing of her leg bones. It's that simple? Squire Hao asked in disbelief, but he immediately regretted it and hurriedly said, I didn't suspect immortal elder, it's that simple. Xiao Hua smiled and pointed at Miss Hao, who had fallen asleep, and said, the bones in her legs have been crushed since she was a child, which is a tricky thing. Later, she hasn't been treated for so many years. These crushed bones are either growing randomly in one place, or they are already necrotic. Therefore, it is impossible to treat her now. I'll shatter her bones again and use my Taoist immortal pills to fuse these bones back together in 27 days, just like how they grew back in the past. As the saying goes, it takes 100 days for bones to heal. I am not some immortal. Being able to heal her bones within 30 days is already the best I can do. Yes, I understand. When Squire Hao heard Xiao Hua's profound explanation, he was really ecstatic. The trace of disbelief from before also disappeared. I thank Immortal Elder for your miraculous skill. Don't worry. Xiao Hua said again. After 30 days, Miss Hao's bones will be healed. However, the muscles in her legs haven't been used for more than 10 years. They can't be used anymore. I still need to let Miss Hao move more and use her legs more. According to within 3 to 5 years, Miss Hao will be able to walk freely. Of course, after this treatment, the doctors in Longevity Town will be more experienced than I. Moreover, with Hao family's financial resources, they will definitely be able to support it. It's already very good. It's already very good. Although Xiao Hua wasn't able to make Miss Hao stand up in a few days, which wasn't a miraculous skill, this kind of time that Squire Hao could accept made Squire Hao feel more at ease. I'll wait for you to leave. Xiao Hua looked around and said, I have already done what I can do. The rest will depend on Miss Hao's recovery. Please, Immortal Elder. Please. Squire Hao hurriedly asked Xiao Hua to leave the embroidery building. He ordered Huan, to carefully look after Miss Hao and accompanied Xiao Hua to the front hall. Walking on the road, Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, Squire Hao, Miss Hao's condition is like this. I won't say any more. I want to talk about another matter. Immortal Elder, please speak. Squire Hao said very respectfully with a smile. Just now, I only scolded Miss Hao and didn't say anything about Squire Hao. But this doesn't mean that Squire Hao didn't do anything wrong. Xiao Hua wasn't polite and said with a very serious tone. Although I can't control this matter as an outsider, I still want to say a few more words to Squire Hao. Immortal Elder, please speak. Squire Hao's face showed melancholy. Since this lowly one has accumulated this family business, no one has said anything straightforward. Actually, Miss Hao's legs are secondary. The most important thing is her heart disease. Xiao Hua also sighed. For so many years, she thought too much and did too little. Others also didn't care enough about her. She can only communicate with small animals. In particular, she is no longer good at talking to people and doesn't trust people. These problems should all be blamed on you. A person's face is indeed important. For the sake of the child's future, you should arrange some means. But remember, the child belongs to you, but the child isn't you. Your thoughts aren't the child's thoughts, and your actions can't replace the child's actions. If you blindly force your thoughts on the child, it will only make her feel suffocated and powerless. Actually, if you let the child come into contact with outsiders when she was injured, she would be able to accept her condition with peace of mind. Now, even if her legs can't be cured, her heart won't have any problems. Speaking up to here, Xiao Hua said seriously, at least she won't be obsessed with a rabbit. She won't make things difficult for you. Right? I still want to say something. You should believe her. At least from today's matter, the child didn't do anything wrong. She still thought about this family and told you a dangerous matter in advance. It's just that you didn't choose to believe her and caused such a big misunderstanding. Yes, this lowly one will change a lot in the future. Squire Hao nodded and said hesitantly. Then should this lowly one listen to the child and hide in the countryside first? Her legs. Others might hesitate about this matter, but for you it's necessary. Regardless of whether there will be danger or not. This is the first step for you to gain the child's trust. Xiao Hua said without hesitation. As for her legs, as long as she doesn't move them, it'll be fine. You can just move the entire bed away, right? Yes, yes, many thanks for the immortal's guidance. Squire Hao nodded like a little chick. He didn't expect that a Taoist immortal would understand the thoughts of these children so well. While talking, they arrived at the front hall. A banquet was set up in the front hall. Xiao Jian was accompanied by Hao Yulong, drinking wine to his heart's content. Seeing Xiao Hua come in, the two hurriedly got up. Xiao Jian even used his Taoist robe to wipe the oil on his mouth and respectfully asked, "Senior, Miss Hao, it's already fine." Xiao Hua waved his hand and said carelessly, "Have you eaten and drunk well?" Xiao Jian was a little embarrassed and said with a smile, "Senior knows that this disciple has eaten his fill. Since you've eaten well, you and I should hurry back. In a few hours, we will be preparing to go to the Shaojin temple." Xiao Hua said indifferently, "Yes, this disciple understands." Xiao Jian now only followed Xiao Hua's lead. He hurriedly left his seat and said respectfully, "Immortal Senior, don't be anxious." Squire Hao hurriedly pulled Xiao Hua's Taoist robe and said anxiously, "Immortal Senior has worked so hard to save my daughter from the fire and water. This lowly one has to give Immortal Senior 3 times the respect." Seeing that Squire Hao was very sincere, Xiao Hua said with a smile, "I don't like drinking wine, let Daoist Xiao drink it on my behalf." "Very good." Squire Hao hurriedly gave Hao Yulong a look and raised the pot to toast Xiao Jian 3 times. At this time, Hao Yulong also came in with a plate full of more than 10 small gold ingots. Chapter 3202. Immortal Elder Squire Hao respectfully said, "This is a small token of gratitude. This small one knows that thousands of taels of silver are not enough to repay Immortal Elder's gift. This is only a small token of my appreciation. Your Jiangqiao temple is really shabby, so I ask Immortal Elder to accept it. When the Jiangqiao temple is repaired, this small one will put in even more effort." Xiao Hua naturally had no use for these treasures. He glanced at Xiao Jian. What made him feel strange was that Xiao Jian, who previously would have dropped a copper coin, didn't have much of a reaction to the shiny gold today. However, Xiao Hua still said, "Daoist Xiao, this is Squire Hao's token of appreciation. What do you think?" "Very good, very good." Xiao Jian also smiled and said, "Disciple thanks Squire Hao on behalf of Daoist Xiao and Sea God Darren." As he spoke, he unceremoniously took the tray, picked up his cloth bag from the table, and casually poured the gold into it. From the looks of it, it was no different from pouring a dozen copper coins. "Let's go." Seeing this, Xiao Hua didn't say much and brought Xiao Jian out of the front hall. Under the guidance of Squire Hao and Xiao Jian, they left the Hao residence. However, just as they walked out of the front hall, Xiao Huang and Xiao He flew in from the air. Xiao Hua waved his big sleeve and naturally put them back into the space. That glib-tongued rabbit didn't appear. Clearly, it returned to the side of the Hao family's young miss. Outside the Hao residence, a carriage was already prepared. Xiao Hua glanced at the night sky. It was the darkness before dawn. He didn't say much and lifted his foot to get on the carriage. Looking at the coachman driving the carriage away from the Hao residence, Squire Hao and Hao Yulong bowed to the ground and didn't get up for a long time. The carriage was very stable. Xiao Jian sat for a moment, and a wave of unbearable sleepiness came over him. He didn't dare to rest and forced his eyes open. He looked at Xiao Hua, who was sitting cross-legged, and asked, "Senior, disciple has a question. I have always wanted to ask. Is it possible?" "Speak." Xiao Hua didn't open his eyes and said indifferently, "If you want to ask about my origin, then you should just shut up." "I don't dare. Senior's origin has nothing to do with disciple. Disciple definitely won't ask too much." Xiao Jian yawned and said, "Disciple just feels a bit strange. Senior's cultivation is so profound. Why don't you like to reveal it?" When this disciple first met Senior, perhaps Senior had some restrictions that prevented him from revealing his cultivation. But later on, it was obvious that Senior's cultivation had recovered, so why did he keep hiding it? Especially when I came to the Hao residence tonight. Actually, this disciple needs to rely on Senior, but why does Senior have to pretend to be this disciple's follower? In the end, Wasn't it Senior who took action to deal with that rabbit? Moreover, Senior's cultivation has also been exposed. Since that's the case, why must Senior hide behind me? Xiao Jian's words were originally unintentional, perhaps because he wanted to get close to Xiao Hua. But in Xiao Hua's ears, it was like a sudden clap of thunder. That's right, when Xiao Hua was in the Dawn Rain continent, he had yet to obtain a cultivation method. From being a rogue cultivator to being abandoned by the heavens, and then to the Imperial Thunder Sect, he had suffered a lot. Not long after arriving at the Imperial Thunder Sect, he obtained a cultivation method from the Buddhist sect, and even had some achievements in Buddhist cultivation. From this moment on, Xiao Hua became very careful, blindly concealing his cultivation, trying his best not to let others notice him. However, Xiao Hua was this outstanding, like a sharp flying sword, so he would definitely stand out. A great Dao sword battle resulted in the terrifying Phoenix and nascent Soul Nameless, making it impossible for him to hide anymore. However, Xiao Hua's cautiousness, his habit of hiding himself, remained. Even now, when he arrived at the Immortal Burial Continent, whether it was the Buddhist sect or the Confucian sect, they were all upright and upright. Even the Taoist sect's cultivators were not the kind of cultivators who would be exterminated. Was there a need for Xiao Hua to be this cautious? Just like tonight, just like what Xiao Jian said. Xiao Hua simply did not have any need to hide behind Xiao Jian. Even if it was to deal with that rabbit, a few fire talismans and a magic tool would be enough to deal with it. There was simply no need to go through so much trouble. And if Xiao Hua's magic power was not enough, but to deal with an inferior little rabbit, just a yellow talisman would be enough, right? A habit, it's a habit. Xiao Hua bitterly smiled. Just as he was about to open his mouth to explain, he already heard Xiao Jian's snoring sound. Hee, Xiao Hua's mouth hung a smile, and secretly said in his heart, "This Xiao is hiding something. Aren't you also hiding something? Previously, when you saw a few copper coins, your eyes would open. Today, when you saw so much gold, you didn't lose your composure. Those high-grade spirit stones, ordinary people simply do not understand. You also properly received them. That so-called single Liang country, King Xiaojun, it seems like they are all real." Xiao Jian's sleep naturally reached the Jiangqiao Ridge. Only then was he awakened by Xiao Hua. Rubbing his eyes, Xiao Jian did not say anything, jumped down from the carriage, and followed Xiao Hua up the mountain. When he arrived at the door of the Taoist temple, he still turned his head to look at the sky that was already somewhat bright in the night. He cupped his fists towards Xiao Hua, yawned and entered the east wing, as if he had full confidence in the upcoming challenge. Xiao Hua raised his head to look at the banyan tree, and saw Yuanya jumping over like a spirit ape. He waved his hand, and walked into the west wing. Everything in the west wing was no different from before he left. Xiaoyan was still lying in the wooden barrel, except for her head which was still exposed. The rest of her body was soaked in water. Xiao Hua stretched his hand out to test the temperature of the water, but it was still somewhat cold. He knew that Yuanya had just changed it. Then he stretched his hand out from the water, and took Xiao Yun's wrist out. After examining it for a moment, he shook his head slightly. What's going on with this child? Xiao Hua sighed. If she's sick then right? From her pulse, everything is normal. But if she's not sick, then the heat in her body hasn't decreased. Moreover, her pulse is different from ordinary people's. This child. Thinking, Xiao Hua looked at Lu Yi who was sleeping soundly. When Brother Lu came to the Jiangqiao temple, he was already seriously injured. Although he had Xiao Hua's spirit pills, his mental and physical exhaustion was not something that could be replenished by spirit pills. Tonight he really couldn't hold on, so he fell asleep in front of the wooden barrel. It's rare for there to be love in this world. Xiao Hua looked at Lu Yi's tightly knitted black eyebrows with deep worry, knowing that he was worried about Xiao Yin even in his dreams. This girl has nothing to do with him, but he was able to give his care because of the girl's loneliness. Although he is a thief in the marketplace, his heart is so bright and pure. Compared to Hao Family's young miss, he is much better. Poor Hao Family's young miss, if she could meet Brother Lu when she was young, perhaps she wouldn't have isolated herself from the world, only living with a rabbit. Rabbit. Xiao Hua thought of the rabbit and suddenly froze. That's right, the Shi country of the hidden immortal continent is different from the Shi country of the Dawn Rain continent. Not only are there Confucian and Buddhist cultivators here, there are also demons. Since the rabbit can enter the boudoir, and Xiao Yun's pulse is different from ordinary people, could it be that she is also a demon? Xiao Hua originally wanted to use his Dharma eye, but at that time, Louis was beside him, so Xiao Hua felt that there was no need, so he stopped. At this time, Xiao Hua carefully looked at Xiao Yun's face, but he couldn't see any difference between her and ordinary girls. However, Xiao Hua also knew that there was a little duck in his space. How could he tell when Dai, or was still in her human form? Of course at this time Dai, or had completely recovered after 100 years of cultivation, but Xiao Hua still didn't think of how to explain the space to Dai. So he threw her in a corner of the space, isolating her from other things, waiting for an opportunity to let her out in the future. As for the matter of the 10,000 Demon Realms Empress, Xiao Hua wanted to ask Dai, first, but when he arrived at the hidden immortal continent, Xiao Hua simply didn't ask. Who knows when he can return to the Dawn Rain continent? It won't be too late to ask when the time comes. There was also the multicolored conch. There were also some changes, but Xiao Hua didn't dare to look. If it was really Ming Hua's body, then who knows what was so special about it? If he was careless and fell for it, it would be too late to cry. Everything depends on the opportunity. Xiao Hua sighed, then thought again. Maybe I can see some clues with my heavenly eye? Thinking, Xiao Hua closed his eyes again, and a faint light flashed on his forehead. Layers of green light were produced in the white light, but just when the Dharma eye was about to open, Xiao Hua suddenly frowned, patted his forehead, and said with a bitter smile, "What time is it now? How can I still think of this? What the rabbit said may be true. Since this Xiao knows, I naturally have to investigate. Let's talk about Xiao Yun's matter in a few days." Immediately, the light on Xiao Hua's forehead disappeared, and Xiao Hua hurriedly walked out of the east room. Xiao Hua sat cross-legged in front of the Taoist temple, looked at the gradually rising sun, and was about to send out his divine sense. But just as his divine sense was sent out a few li, he withdrew it again. Divine sense can't be subtle. If it's to investigate something, it's better to use Buddhist sense. Under the puzzled gaze of Yuanya, who was lying on the banyan tree in the distance, Xiao Hua released his Buddhist sense, and began to carefully investigate the surroundings of Longevity Town. The little gold temple in the night still had the noise of the day, and inside the great strength hall, it was still brightly lit. On the incense table in front of the Buddha, incense sticks were burning fiercely. In front of the incense table, a dozen monks wearing monk robes were chanting some unknown sutra, and in their hands were a wooden mallet, lightly knocking on the wooden fish in front of them. Only, in this night, the chanting of sutra was somewhat vague, and the sound of the wooden fish was also somewhat low. "Stop!" An angry roar sounded in the main hall. Immediately, the chanting of sutra and the sound of the wooden fish stopped. What was extremely disharmonious was that the main hall was only silent for a moment, and the dang-dang sound of the wooden fish sounded again. "Abbot, please forgive me." The crisp sound of the wooden fish was knocked twice, and the monk who was dozing off in time hurriedly got up and knelt on the ground, looking at Monk Mingyu in front of the incense table, who was wearing a kasaya and had a face full of anger, and was glaring at him, and hurriedly called out. Chapter 3203. Zen Master Mingyu's eyes flashed with anger and humphed. "Look at all of you. It's just chanting sutras. Why are all of you so listless? You can't even last a night. What kind of cultivation is this? It's better to renounce asceticism and go home to farm." "We were wrong, please forgive us, Abbot." The group of disciples hurriedly lowered their heads, and said in unison, "Senior Brother Abbot." A slightly fat monk standing in front of the group of disciples smiled and said, "The disciples left in the temple are just ordinary monks. They can't be compared to the disciples that Senior Brother Ming Fa took away. My Shaojin temple is now filled with incense. There are many lay people who come to pray and fulfill their vows. They have been doing good deeds in the temple during the day to welcome pilgrims. They are already very tired. If they stay up all night chanting sutras, I'm afraid they won't be able to support themselves. I hope Senior Marshal Brother can understand." Junior brother Mingjian. Zen Master Mingyu's face was filled with displeasure as he said, "It's not that I don't understand them. I don't ask much of them, but it's different today. Yinlin Temple's martial uncle Xingqian is coming to my Shaojin Temple. No matter how well we do on a daily basis, he won't be satisfied. Our hard work will all be for naught." Sai hearing this, Mingjian's face was filled with worry. He looked at the night sky outside the main hall and sighed. "We have been waiting here for 3 nights, but martial uncle didn't come. I'm afraid he won't be coming today. Senior brother, why don't we let the disciples go back and rest? Tomorrow is the day of the immortal Buddhist ceremony. Although my Shaojin Temple can't be as lively as Yinlin Temple, it should still have some atmosphere. These disciples will have to work hard tomorrow." At this point, Mingjian couldn't continue. Sai Zen Master Mingyu was also worried. The immortal Buddhist ceremony is one thing, but the challenge of the Jiangqiao Temple is more important. If martial uncle Xingqian doesn't come in time tonight, my Shaojin Temple will be in trouble tomorrow. Forget it, all of you can leave. Rest in peace early so that you can be energetic tomorrow. Don't tarnish the reputation of the Buddhist sect's disciples. Yes, we understand. The dozen or so monks felt as if they had been relieved of a heavy burden. They all stood up, bowed, and left one after another. Mingjian, you should go back too. Seeing that Mingjian was still sitting there, Zen Master Mingyu waved his hand and said. But Mingjian smiled and said, "Disciple had better accompany senior apprentice brother here. Maybe martial uncle Xingqian will come over soon, so it's better for our Shaojin Temple to not lose our manners." Speaking to this point, Mingjian was puzzled again and said in a low voice, "Senior brother Abbot, didn't you say a few days ago that Shirshu should have arrived the day before yesterday? Even if martial uncle is late, it shouldn't be so late, right?" "If you ask me, who should I ask?" Zen Master Mingyu was clearly impatient. He got up from the futon and walked slowly to the door of the main hall. He looked at the night sky outside and smiled bitterly. The immortal and Buddha ceremony will begin in a few hours. The challenge of Jiangqiao Temple would follow soon after. Over the past few days, the reputation of the Tidal River Temple had risen greatly. They had saved 2 men and women who were about to die, igniting the passion of the entire longevity town. Not to mention the reconstructed golden body called Taoist Master Shao or Lord Sea God. Even the incense was more than 10 times stronger than before. In the past, their Taoist sect had Yuanya, and even our Shaojin Temple's disciples couldn't defeat him easily. Now that there's a mysterious Taoist Master Shao, how do you expect our Shaojin Temple to face him tomorrow? Senior brother Abbot. Mingjian was a little surprised. That Yuanya might be strong and skilled in fighting, but in the eyes of senior apprentice brother Ming Fa and senior apprentice brother Mingjian, he shouldn't be much, right? That new Taoist Master Shao of Jiangqiao Temple has an unknown background, and we don't know how strong he is, but it's obvious that he's Xiao Jian's blood relative. Xiao Jian doesn't have any cultivation, so how strong can his blood relative be? If I could easily kill Yuanya, would his Jiangqiao Temple still exist today? Zen Master Mingyu replied in a low voice. Although Yuanya doesn't have any Taoist techniques, his fighting skills are all sure kill techniques that put his life on the line. I've only just formed a good relationship with him. If I really put my life on the line, I'm definitely better than Yuanya in terms of punches and kicks. Besides, how can I, as the head of a temple, directly face off against Yuanya? Then we're in trouble. Mingjian's expression changed as well. He smiled and said, "I thought that senior apprentice brother Abbot had always been hiding your strength and didn't want to lower yourself to the same level as Jiangqiao Temple. That might not be as serious as you think." Zen Master Mingyu narrowed his eyes. "If it really involves the survival of my Shaojin Temple, I'm not afraid to use my Buddhist secret technique." "Oh, what happened to Shaojin Temple? You're actually going to use a secret technique?" At this moment, a Buddhist sense swept past them. Similarly, a surprised voice sounded in their ears. "Martial Uncle Xingqian." Hearing this voice, Zen Master Mingyu almost shouted out loud. He hurriedly looked towards the source of the voice and the Buddhist sense. Not long after, 4 middle-aged and old monks of different sizes stepped on faint clouds and floated down from the night sky. Disciples Mingyu and Mingjian greet martial uncles. Zen Master Mingyu and Mingjian tidied up their clothes and respectfully bowed. Ba, martial nephews, please rise. In front of him was a thin old man. His eyebrows were already white, and his hands were abnormally dry. However, the old man's eyes flashed with an extremely bright light. He glanced at the two of them, and chanted the name of Buddha. Yes. Zen Master Mingyu and Monk Mingjian replied and straightened up. The old man was Xingchen. After greeting Mingyu and Mingjian, he waved his hand and said, "Behind me are Xing Kong, Xing Min and Xing Fan. Martial nephew Mingyu. Have you met them in Yunlin Temple before? This disciple greets your martial uncle Xing Kong. As for martial uncles Xing Min and Xing Fan, I have only heard of your name and have never seen you before." Monk Mingyu smiled and greeted Mingjian and the other three martial uncles. Where's Ming Fa? Xingchen clearly had some understanding of Shaojin Temple. Although I'm late, the other ordinary disciples can rest. He can't sleep early, can he? Haha, of course not. Zen Master Mingyu smiled and said, I've been waiting for martial uncles with more than 30 disciples of Shaojin Temple for 3 days. The other disciples just left a few minutes ago. As for Ming Fa, today's dusk, Counselor Hao of Longevity Town is in some trouble. It seems that there's some demon there. I can't go, so I sent junior brother Ming Fa over. Looking at the time, he should be back soon. Oh, demon? Xingchen raised his white eyebrows and said in surprise. What kind of demon is it? Can Ming Fa handle it alone? I don't know what kind of demon it is. Zen Master Mingyu said casually. However, as far as I know, there aren't any powerful demons in Longevity Town. Besides, Ming Fa has the demon-absorbing bowl in the temple and more than 10 disciples to help him. He should be fine. No. Unexpectedly, Xingchen immediately shouted. Tell this old monk where Squire Hao lives. This old monk will go and see for himself. Okay, seeing that Xingchen was so serious, Zen Master Mingyu's heart tightened. Just as he was about to speak, Xingchen raised his eyebrows and said with a smile. It seems that I don't have to go. Oh. Ming Fa, they're back? Zen Master Mingyu hurriedly released his weak Buddhist awareness. Unfortunately, the range of his Buddhist awareness was too small to see anything. However, Zen Master Mingyu withdrew his Buddhist awareness and said to Xingchen and the others, Since junior brother Ming Fa is back, you don't have to worry about him. Please rest in the quiet room. Okay. Xingchen nodded and looked at the great Buddha's hall. After I pay my respects to Buddha, I'll go. Then, under Zen Master Mingyu's lead, Xingchen and the others paid their respects to Buddha and came to a quiet room that had been prepared in advance. Mingyu and Mingjian poured tea for Xingchen. Before Xingchen could take a sip, Ming Fa returned to Shaojin Temple with more than 10 embarrassed disciples. Ming Fa and the others were injured by the rabbit's demonic qi, and their primordial qi was damaged. They looked dispirited and listless. Ming Fa ordered the disciples to go back to their rooms and rest. Then he came to see Zen Master Mingyu alone. Seeing Ming Fa return with a broken halberd, both Zen Master Mingyu and Xingchen were surprised. After Ming Fa told them what had happened, Zen Master Mingyu's face changed greatly. Looking at the frowning Xingchen, Zen Master Mingyu got up and walked to Xingchen. He knelt on the ground and said, Martial uncle, please save Shaojin Temple from destruction. Ah. Why is that? Xingchen seemed to be thinking about something else. Seeing Zen Master Mingyu bow to him, he hurriedly stretched out his hand and said, Martial nephew, stand up and speak. Martial uncle, this is very important. It concerns the survival of Shaojin Temple. If Martial uncle doesn't agree, I'm afraid I won't dare to stand up and speak. Zen Master Mingyu said bitterly. It concerns the survival of Shaojin Temple? Xingchen was even more surprised. After thinking for a while, he nodded and said, As long as it's something that I can do, just say it. Since it concerns the safety of Shaojin Temple, how can I not agree? After Zen Master Mingyu told him about the challenge between Shaojin Temple and Jiangchao Temple, as well as the Immortal Buddha ceremony at Changxing Academy, Xingchen smiled and said, I thought it was something important. Since it concerns the prosperity of Buddhism, even if you didn't say it, I would have volunteered myself. It's not a difficult task. Thank you, Martial Uncle. Seeing that Xingchen didn't blame him for taking matters into his own hands, Zen Master Mingyu was overjoyed. He hurriedly thanked him and said, I just wanted to take advantage of Martial Uncle's arrival to wipe out the remaining Taoists in front of Shaojin Temple. I didn't expect that there would be an unexpected opponent. An unexpected opponent? That's nothing. Xingchen smiled and said, if you challenge Chongqing Academy, I would have to consider it. A small Jiangchao temple doesn't need me to take action. This old monk's junior brother alone can uproot them. Haha, that's for sure. Zen Master Mingyu smiled and said, not to mention Jiangchao Temple, even Chongqing Academy, since Martial Uncle and the others are here, they will definitely win. However, I feel that Chongqing Academy is too powerful in Chongqing Town, so it's not easy to confront them openly. Otherwise, I would have pulled Chongqing Academy into the fight. Chapter 3204. Hehe, what do you know? Xingchen sneered. It's not worth it to sacrifice Chongqing Academy for a bet. We can't challenge the bottom line of the Confucian cultivators. We can only try our best to develop the power of the Buddhist sect. What's more, Old Monk and the rest are not the only ones who have come to Longevity Town. The Chongyin sect has also sent a few literary masters. I may not be able to win. Ah, how many literary masters have come from Chongqing Academy? Zen Master Mingyu was surprised. He looked at Xingchen and said anxiously, did something big happen in Chongqing Town? Not only did Liao Chen of the Buddhist sect come, but also a literary master of Confucian cultivation? Ming Fa, come here. Xingchen didn't answer Zen Master Mingyu's question. Instead, he waved his hand and asked Ming Fa to come to him. After Ming Fa sat on the praying mat in front of Xingchen, Xingchen extended a finger and placed it between Ming Fa's eyebrows. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Xingchen opened his mouth and said, It seems that the so-called monster of the Hao clan is just a rabbit that has turned into a spirit. However, Ming Fa, you didn't wake up on your own. What kind of elixir did you take? With your cultivation, you can't escape from the rabbit. Ah, that's... Zen Master Mingyu was shocked. He looked at Ming Fa and asked, did the sun rise from the west? Xiao Jian of Jiangchao Temple actually helped our Shaojin Temple? If Xiao Jian didn't know how to do it, then it must be another Taoist. Xingchen laughed. Impossible. Ming Fa shook his head quickly. It was always Xiao Jian who did it. That Taoist was just a follower. But speaking up to this point, Ming Fa also came to a realization. He looked at Ming Jian and Ming Yu and said, but from the things that happened in the past few days, this Taoist priest with the same surname Xiao is really possible. Oh, what happened to Jiangchao Temple? Xingchen's interest was piqued again. As far as I know, this dilapidated place can no longer pose any threat to the Golden Temple of our Buddhism sect. Why are there so many things happening today? Zen Master Mingyu recounted everything that had happened in the past 10 days. Hehe, do you still need to say it? It must be that Taoist priest Zhao's doing. He must have some kind of Taoist elixir. Xingchen sneered. The awakening of Ming Fa and the others, as well as the subduing of the rabbit spirit, are all related to Taoist Xiao. That's right. If this Taoist priest Xiao didn't want to reconcile with my little gold temple, he wouldn't have been able to save Ming Fa and the others. Zen Master Bright Moon nodded and said, given Xiao Jian's harsh temperament, he could only send the unconscious Ming Fa and company back to Little Gold Temple, and use this to humiliate our Buddhist sect. Ba, if that's the case, Ming Fa had already thought things through on the way here. Upon hearing Zen Master Mingyu's words, he blushed slightly and pressed his palms together. I've made things difficult for senior brother Abbot. It's all my fault for being too weak. Hehe, it's fine. Zen Master Mingyu glanced at Xingchen and said with a smile, my Buddhist sect has always been merciful to people. Whether they are secular people, Confucian cultivators, or Taoists, I have never really attacked Yuanya, have I? Those small fights were just a joke to the Jiangchao Temple. Since the Jiangchao Temple was the first to show goodwill, Little Gold Temple shouldn't be petty. Shaojin Temple couldn't be petty. Who didn't know how to return a favor? Tomorrow. Oh, I should say today, at the Immortal Buddha ceremony. We only need them to admit defeat and forgive them. Fool. Unexpectedly, just as Zen Master Mingyu finished speaking, he thought Xingchen would clap his hands. However, what greeted him was Xingchen's cold face and scolding. Mingyu, you have been the abbot of Little Gold Temple for so many years. You have received the high hopes of our Yunlin Temple's elders. Seeing Xingchen so angry that he didn't even address him as martial nephew. Zen Master Mingyu panicked and hurriedly stood up. Please enlighten me, martial uncle. You don't understand the conflict between Buddhism and Confucianism, much less the conflict between Buddhism and Confucianism. You don't know the greatness of my Buddhist sect. Why did my Buddhist sect travel millions of miles to build a Yunlin temple in the country of Xi? Why did my Yunlin temple send you to Longevity Town to become the abbot of Little Gold Temple? Xingchen said coldly. To shine the Supreme Buddha's light on the 3 continents is what we, the thousands of bodhisattvas, should do. This is our lifelong obsession. Your hypocritical benevolence can only be blinded by worldly grievances, throwing our Buddha's greatness into the sea of blood. Today you let go of Jiangqiao Temple. Tomorrow you will let go of Longevity Academy. But what about them? When they bare their sharp fangs and drive you out of Longevity Town, I'd like to see where you'll end up. Previously, when I saw that you were able to deal a fatal blow to the Taoists of Jiangqiao Temple when I came to Longevity Town, I thought you were a promising talent and was delighted. However, after hearing what you said just now, hearing Xingchen's words, Zen Master Mingyu put his palms together and said, Umitba, martial uncle's teachings are right. I've learned my lesson. I won't dare to use my little mercy to block the Buddha's great ambition, and I won't dare to use worldly favors to block the glory of my Buddhist sect. And it's good that you know your mistake. Xingchen's expression changed and he nodded. Actually, your goal in Longevity Town isn't Jiangqiao Temple. I'm sure you know that. Yes, I understand. Jiangqiao Temple is just an ant compared to Longevity Academy. Zen Master Mingyu lowered his head. My Shaojin Temple still doesn't have the strength to compete with Longevity Academy. Do you think Longevity Academy agreed to participate in the competition and hold the so-called Immortal Buddhist ceremony at Shaojin Temple on Zhu Juanfeng's whim? Xingchen's right hand sneered. Longevity Academy wants to see our Buddhist sect's attitude towards Taoism, whether we're tolerant or cold. Don't forget what the Immortal Buddhist ceremony is. If you're tolerant today, not only will Jiangqiao Temple's Taoist sect grow stronger, even Longevity Academy will bully you and trample on you. The conflict between Buddhism and Confucianism is like a tiger and a wolf. Yes, I understand. Seeing that Xingchen actually brought out the conflict between tigers and wolves, Zen Master Mingyu hurriedly nodded. Then tomorrow's matter will depend on martial uncle. Since Longevity Academy sent someone here, they must be prepared. Jiangqiao Temple also has Taoist Xiao who can subdue demons. It won't be easy to deal with them. When he spoke up to hear, chanting Master Bright Moon was clearly shocked again. Of course, a Transcendence Realm martial uncle came from his family. A scholar-level Confucian cultivator came from Long Life Academy, and even the unremarkable River and Tide Temple gained a Taoist priest who could subdue demons. Wasn't this a situation of fierce competition? He didn't believe that these people were all here for the Immortal Buddhist ceremony that Longevity Town had never paid attention to before. Martial Uncle Zen Master Mingyu asked tentatively, You didn't come to Longevity Town for the Immortal Buddhist ceremony, right? When I came here, who knew that you would hold the Immortal Buddhist ceremony here? Xingchen sneered. If I wanted to participate in the Immortal Buddhist ceremony, wouldn't I be at Yunlin Temple? Who would have the patience to come to your Shaojin Temple? Zen Master Mingyu was delighted to hear Xingchen's nagging and not so serious tone. He smiled and said, Then I really don't understand. Is there anyone in Longevity Town that can catch the eye of martial uncles? If it's my purpose for coming here, Xingchen glanced at Ming Fa and said lightly, It's related to what Miss Hao said. Ah. Ming Fa was stunned and almost blurted out. What the rabbit said was true. Sai Ming Fa's words made Zen Master Mingyu and Ming Qing gasp. They looked at Xingchen in disbelief. That's right, Xingchen said lightly. Yunlin Temple received news that some demons are eyeing Longevity Town. It can't be. Zen Master Mingyu almost cried out in grief. He had put in a lot of effort in Shaojin Temple, and it was not easy for it to have such a scene. If the demons were eyeing Longevity Town, wouldn't his efforts be in vain? Longevity Town is one of the hundreds of towns in the country of Shi. There's nothing to show off. Why are those demons eyeing Longevity Town? I'm not a demon. How would I know what they're thinking? Xingchen did not refer to himself as old monk anymore. He seemed to have a lot of resentment. What exactly is the news that martial uncle received? Mingcheng was also afraid and asked in a low voice. Perhaps the news is false. It may not be false. Xingchen shook his head and said, even Chongyun's sect sent scholars to Longevity Academy. The Confucian cultivators must have received this news as well. However, the reason why this old man came a few days late was because I looked around and found a few unorthodox cultivators. I even went to Lucky Shun Town to visit the small bamboo temple. What's strange about it? Zen Master Mingyu looked at Xingchen's expression and asked in a low voice. There seems to be some movement, but it also seems to be groundless speculation. Xingchen shook his head and said, however, it's not like what you think, or what Miss Hao said about the people being plunged into misery and suffering. I'm afraid it's just some small demons who want to do some blood sacrifice. It's not a big deal. Blood sacrifice? Zen Master Mingyu raised his eyebrows and said, why don't they go deep into the mountains and forests? Why would they go to Longevity Town where there are so many people? Don't tell me they want to use hundreds of thousands of people in Longevity Town as sacrifices? If you're a demon, you must know. How would I know if they want to use hundreds of thousands of people for blood sacrifice? Damn it, it's just some groundless speculation and they sent me here. Sigh, think about the invitation to the Immortal Buddhist ceremony that I went through so much trouble to get. It's all wasted. Haha, martial uncle, tomorrow my Shaojin temple will have an Immortal Buddhist ceremony, and you're hosting it. Isn't this fulfilling your regret? Bullshit. Xingchen was about to stand up. However, he immediately came to his senses and hurriedly put his palms together. Umitba, this poor monk knows his mistake. Then he recited a few scriptures and said, look at that nondescript arena in front of your door. You want me to preside over the Immortal Buddha ceremony? You really want to embarrass me. Chapter 3205. Only now did Monk Mingyu realize that Xingchen referred to himself as an old man. His eyes narrowed and he hurriedly said, if martial uncle isn't willing, then sit up there. This disciple will host on behalf of the Buddhist sect. Either way, it's a glorious affair. What glorious affair? Xingchen said in annoyance. This old man has never heard of a Buddhist, Taoist, and Confucian challenge held in an arena made of several wooden pillars. This kind of arena can be used by ordinary people, but it will collapse as soon as a cultivator goes up there. Let's not talk about anything else. With a flying sword from a Confucian cultivator and a Buddhist seal from a Buddhist disciple, wouldn't your thin wooden planks be destroyed? This disciple understands. Monk Mingyu blushed and smiled apologetically, but this disciple's little gold temple only has 30 people. How could we have the financial resources to make it perfect? This stage is nothing more than a place for unranked disciples to play around on. When martial uncle sparred with Longevity Academy's literary masters, he naturally flew back and forth in the sky for the people of the secular world to admire. Why would he need this stage? Although that's the case, this is still the face of the Buddhist sect. We can't ignore it. Xing Kong, Xing Min, and Xing Fan, go add Buddhist light to the arena so that others won't laugh at us if anything happens. Yes, we understand. Hearing the order, the three arhats who had been silent with their brows lowered responded and stood up. Martial uncle, this way please. Ming Fa glanced at Monk Mingyu and hurriedly said, let's go. We'll go out together. Xingchen waved his hand and said, it's almost dawn. We won't be able to cultivate in the quiet room for long. Yes, martial uncle, this way please. Monk Mingyu and the others hurriedly stood up. When they arrived outside the Shaojin temple, they saw a large flat area under the mountain gate. There was an arena that was several zhang in size. Below the arena, there were dozens of thick wooden pillars supporting it. The thickness of the arena was at least a foot. It could be considered extremely sturdy. On the two sides of the arena were two sheds. They were empty inside, without any tables or chairs. Under the morning light, the arena looked very lonely, especially between the thick wooden pillars. Darkness seeped through the gaps, making it look very rough. Perhaps because he had just been scolded by Xing Chun, Zen Master Mingyu, who had always been proud of the arena, felt his face heat up. He stole a glance at Xing Chun in front of him, as if waiting for Xing Chun to speak. Unexpectedly, Xing Chun only glanced at him indifferently before raising his head to look at the longevity town in the distance. Nobody knew what he was thinking. Zen Master Mingyu didn't dare to say anything. He only accompanied them quietly. On the other hand, Xing Kong, Xing Min, and Xing Fan discussed in a low voice for a while. Then, they stood at different parts of the ring and waved their arms. Some of them were chanting mantras, while others were making Buddhist seals. After half an hour, a faint Buddhist aura appeared from all parts of the ring. The originally simple and crude ring seemed to have a bit of a Buddhist aura. Ming Fa leaped up and landed on the stage. He circulated his internal energy and kicked the stage a few times. He didn't hear the previous zhuzh sound. He put his palms together and bowed. Many thanks to the three martial uncles. Amit Ba. The three monks put their palms together and smiled faintly. It was already dawn in the east. Everyone's monk robes fluttered in the morning breeze. A solemn atmosphere filled the air around the ring. At this moment, a Buddhist aura that was fainter than the wind and brighter than the sun suddenly swept across the ring. However, it paused for a moment when it swept past Xing Chun and the other monks. Ah? Xing Chun and the other three monks were in the transcendence realm. They were at the second and third tier of elemental energy. How could they not notice the Buddhist aura sweeping over them? Xing Chun was shocked and almost lost his voice. This, which martial ancestor is here? Xing Chun didn't hesitate. A cloud appeared under his feet, and he flew towards the source of the Buddhist aura. He wanted to welcome the owner of the aura. Xing Kong, Xing Min, and Xing Fan didn't want to stay. They hurriedly flew up as well. Martial uncles, Zen Master Mingyu was anxious. He was only at the first and second tier of elemental energy and couldn't fly. He didn't have a Buddhist weapon in his hand. He couldn't help but shout. However, Xing Chun and the others didn't seem to hear him. The figures in the air became smaller and smaller. Senior Brother Abbot. Ming Chung and Ming Fa turned pale with fright. Their Buddhist aura was weak and almost inaudible. However, they also noticed the abnormality of the Buddhist aura. They walked over to Zen Master Mingyu and asked excitedly, which martial ancestor's Buddhist aura is this? Are there other seniors coming over? How would I know? Zen Master Mingyu replied unhappily. Even martial uncle Xing Chun doesn't know. How would I know? Then Ming Fa said softly, what's this martial ancestor's cultivation level? Can the old man block the demon's blood sacrifice? Senior Brother Ming Fa. Ming Ching smiled. Since martial uncle Xing Chun calls him martial ancestor, then it must be Ru Ni's cultivation level. He was at the fourth tier of elemental energy in the hidden immortal continent. What Ru Ni's cultivation level? Zen Master Mingyu rolled his eyes at Ming Chung. That's Ming Ni's cultivation level. Yes, I know. It's Ming Ni's cultivation level. Ming Chung said embarrassedly. A martial ancestor with this level of cultivation. I'm afraid he's on par with the abbot of our Cloud Forest Temple? No, he should be stronger than the abbot of Cloud Forest Temple. Why did he come to Longevity Town? Naturally, he has the same goal as martial uncle Xing Chun. Haha, that's good. Ming Fa laughed. With him around, we don't have to worry anymore. AI, Senior Brother Abbot, you didn't go to Hao Clan so you don't know. That demon is really powerful. Even my Shaojin Temple's Buddhist artifact couldn't do anything to it. If there's an even more powerful demon coming over, my Shaojin Temple. Zen Master Mingyu snorted coldly and said, it's because my Shaojin Temple doesn't have that kind of power that martial uncle Xing Chun, and the rest came to Longevity Town. Now that a Ming Ni's martial ancestor has come, my Shaojin Temple has nothing to worry about from now on. That whatever rabbit, whatever radish, they're just methods for us to spread Buddhism. Yes, we understand. Ming Fa smiled and said, with martial ancestor, what tidal river temple, what longevity academy, they're not enough for my Shaojin temple. Zen Master Ming Yu waved his hand to stop Ming Fa and ordered the two. Quickly go and inform the disciples in the temple to prepare for the martial ancestor's arrival. Yes, we understand. Ming Chung and Ming Fa left excitedly. However, after an hour, the sun had risen and the 30 or so people in Shaojin Temple were already waiting in front of the Shaojin Temple in their monk robes. Xing Chun and the other three flew back. There were no other monks in front of them. Martial Uncle Zen Master Ming Yu frowned slightly. He looked at Xing Chun, who had landed on the ground, and said in a low voice, "Is it because martial ancestor doesn't want to stay in my Shaojin Temple?" No. Xing Chun frowned even more tightly than Zen Master Ming Yu. I didn't find any trace of martial ancestor. He seemed to have passed by here. His Buddhist awareness swept past, so it's not easy to find him. Zen Master Ming Yu was extremely disappointed. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. Oh, of course. Xing Chun raised his head again and looked into the distance. Perhaps he's in Longevity Town. And he has the same purpose as me. But he's not from Yunlin Temple, so he doesn't want to meet us. This martial ancestor's cultivation. Ming Fa couldn't help but whisper, has he already reached Mingjin? Yes, in terms of Buddhist awareness, he should have reached the Mingjin realm. Xing Chun nodded. However, Buddhist disciples don't pay much attention to Buddhist awareness. They only focus on refining relics. If I'm not mistaken, this martial ancestor has just stepped into the Lotus realm. Pseudo-Lotus? Ming Fa was dumbfounded. Of course. Xing Chun said proudly. This is just a feeling based on my Buddhist awareness. It can't be true. If martial ancestor is Mingjin, he could even be Rugu. Martial Uncle Xing Chun. Ming Fa smiled and said, how many realms are there in Buddhist cultivation? I haven't entered the rank yet, so I really don't understand. Martial Uncle, please enlighten me. Hee little guy. Xing Chun laughed. You haven't entered the rank yet, but you want to know the 9 realms? Aren't you biting off more than you can chew? Seeing Xing Chun joking like this, Ming Fa knew that Xing Chun's worries had disappeared because of the presence of the Buddhist sect's master. He smiled and said, although I haven't entered the rank, I should at least know the secret of Buddhist sect's cultivation. Otherwise, if I accept a disciple one day, I'll be too embarrassed to tell him about it. Okay. Xing Chun was in a good mood. There are 9 realms in Buddhist cultivation. They are benevolence, transcendence, Rugu, bright gene, pseudo-lotus, canopy transformation, embryo formation, stationary spirit, and living Buddha. The mysteries within can only be comprehended when one cultivates. This old man doesn't know either. You just have to remember it well. Thank you, martial uncle. Ming Fa was overjoyed. Forget it. Let's go into the temple. The immortal Buddha ceremony is about to begin. You should get ready. Xing Chun waved his hand and said to Monk Mingyu, oh right, you said that the rules of the challenge were set by the temple of Jiangchao. Did they send it here? This Monk Mingyu smiled bitterly. Xiao Jian hasn't sent it yet. I don't know if he sent it to Chongqing Academy. Nonsense. Xing Chun scolded. The challenge is today. If you don't even know the rules, how are you going to compete with them? Martial uncle. Monk Mingyu smiled. Originally, there were only 2 people in the temple of Jiangchao. One was Xiao Jian, the other was Yuanya. It wasn't 10 days ago. A third person came. I don't know his name. I only know that his surname is Xiao. These days, the temple of Jiangchao has been very busy. It should be the work of the newcomer, Xiao Daoist. The 3 of them had probably never seen such an exuberant situation before. Where would they find the time to come to my Shaojin temple? I can't send people to ask them. Wouldn't that make my Shaojin temple lose face? Moreover, I think, as long as martial uncle comes, no matter what the temple of Jiangchao has, won't it be destroyed under the martial uncle's dharma? Chapter 3206. In these past few days, I've been worried that Uncle Master wouldn't be able to come, so I didn't think too much about it. Zen Master Mingyu added. Let the monastery of Jiangchao bring it on. Our Shaojin Temple will deal with whatever comes our way. Why should we be afraid of them? Ha ha ha, that's right, Uncle Master Mingyu. Xingchen laughed when he heard Zen Master Mingyu's last few words. Exactly. No matter what rules the monastery of Jiangqiao sets, they're nothing but ants before the power of our Shaojin Temple. With that, Xingchen entered the Shaojin Temple with his head held high. The 3 disciples of the Transcendence Realm followed him, leaving Zen Master Mingyu and the rest behind. Haha, Uncle Master Xingchen is really straightforward, Ming Fa said enviously. Exactly, Zen Master Mingyu said in a low voice. If Uncle Master can stay at our Shaojin Temple for a while after the Immortal Buddhist ceremony, we'll definitely benefit greatly. Abbot, just as Zen Master Mingyu was thinking about how to keep Xingchen, a disciple called out softly from behind him. Someone seems to be coming from the foot of the mountain. Oh. When Zen Master Mingyu heard this, he hurriedly turned his head. Indeed, there were a few horse carriages slowly approaching the small gold temple on the mountain path about 1 mile away. Beside the horse carriages were several burly men on horseback guarding them. This is Manager Feng from the Green Pine Drugstore in West Town. Ming Qing looked at him for a moment and said with a smile, When I passed by the Green Pine Drugstore that day, I heard him mention that the Immortals and Buddha's ceremony is a rare event in the Longevity Town. Today he will definitely come to support the Shaojin Temple. Zen Master Mingyu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He naturally understood that in the hearts of the people of Longevity Town, the so-called Immortal Buddha ceremony was no different from ordinary social theater and music performances. Shopkeeper Feng came to support, just to watch the show. Forget it. Since he's here, he's a guest. My Shaojin Temple can't be too slow. Zen Master Mingyu waved his hand. Come with me to welcome him. Since Shopkeeper Feng of the Green Pine Medicine Store was here, the shopkeeper of the Sundry Goods Store, the shopkeeper of the Grain and Oil Store, and so on wouldn't be far away. Carriages after carriages and streams of people came from all around Longevity Town towards the Little Golden Temple. By the time the sun was high in the sky, there were already several hundred people gathered around the arena. Looking at the mountain path at the foot of the mountain, there were still many people coming over. Zen Master Mingyu had really underestimated the gimmick of the Immortal Buddha Grand Ceremony. This was especially so when the Immortal Buddha Grand Ceremony included the competition between the Buddhist sect, Confucian cultivators, and Taoist sections. These hundreds of people had long surpassed the usual number of people who came to the Shaojin Temple to offer incense and worship Buddha. His Shaojin Temple only had about 30 people. How could it handle this? Fortunately, just as Zen Master Mingyu was sweating profusely and feeling extremely anxious, Longevity Academy sent over 100 disciples. Under the lead of a teacher, they assisted the Shaojin Temple in maintaining the order of the ceremony. While Zen Master Mingyu was extremely grateful, he originally wanted to discuss with the teacher how to assign these disciples to assist the Shaojin Temple in arranging the hundreds of people. However, the teacher only greeted Zen Master Mingyu with a smile. After announcing his name, he immediately turned around and instructed the 100 disciples to split into 10 groups and lead the villagers in all directions of the arena. He didn't even bother to discuss with Zen Master Mingyu. Zen Master Mingyu was very dissatisfied. This was clearly overstepping one's authority. Where would the Shaojin Temple put its face? However, in just a moment, the Long Life Academy disciples who were divided into groups each carried out their own duties, commanding the villagers. When they saw the chaotic arena become orderly again, Zen Master Bright Moon revealed a bitter smile. Now how could he not know that his little golden temple, compared to Long Life Academy, couldn't take a single blow? Not to mention the number of disciples and cultivation, just the experience of dealing with such a big scene was far inferior. Zhu Junfeng suggested that the Immortal Buddha ceremony be held in Shaojin Temple. On one hand, he wanted to see how Shaojin Temple would deal with it. On the other hand, he naturally wanted to see Shaojin Temple make a fool of itself. Fortunately, Zen Master Mingyu smiled bitterly and rejoiced at the same time. This seat has always respected Longevity Academy. Moreover, Longevity Academy doesn't need any incense. Between them, it can be considered harmonious. This is why Zhu Junfeng was able to send disciples over to assist. Although Longevity Academy is strong, Today is the Immortal Buddha ceremony. It's not a big deal for them to cover up my Shaojin Temple's brilliance. Immortal Buddha, Longevity Academy is in front of my Shaojin Temple. Regardless of whether it was Zen Master Mingyu's self-deception or Longevity Academy's overstepping one's authority, the order in front of the arena gradually improved. Even though there were many villagers who came later, they were all led to an orderly place by the Longevity Academy disciples. Naturally, the villagers in front of the arena weren't all kind people. Some of them didn't accept the arrangement and stood in a bad position. It was inevitable that there would be some complaints and conflicts. Longevity Academy's disciples didn't show any mercy to these people. They either subdued them or chased them away. Zen Master Mingyu and the others were envious of their ruthless methods. In the eyes of the Buddhist monks, these people were pilgrims and parents of food and shelter. However, in the eyes of the disciples, they were troublemakers. They could use any means to deal with them. There were even some ruffians who didn't look like they were here to watch the competition. When they saw the academy's disciples, they didn't even go near them. They stayed far away and turned around. The crowd was weaving. When the sun was high up in the sky, there was already a black mass of heads in front of the arena. The people at the front came early. Some brought their own chairs and stools. Even if the people at the back brought some, their line of sight was blocked by the people at the front. When they sat down, they couldn't see the arena clearly. Zen Master Mingyu took a look and got a fright. Weren't there close to 2,000 people here to watch the show? Ba. If these people come to my little gold temple, everyone will burn incense for the Buddha and give a copper coin to the little gold temple. Zen Master Mingyu couldn't help but think. Just as Zen Master Mingyu's imagination was running wild, Ming Fa ran over and whispered, "Senior Brother Abbot, no one from Longevity Academy and Jiangchao Temple has come yet." "It's fine," Zen Master Mingyu smiled and said. "Longevity Academy's disciples are here. How can their dean not come? As for Jiangchao Temple, I forgot that Xiao Jian and I didn't agree on a time. That guy is so sinister. He won't not come, right?" When he finished speaking, Zen Master Mingyu's expression almost changed. If Jiangchao Temple didn't come, wouldn't this arena become a joke? These few days he was jealous of Jiangchao Temple and worried that Xingqian hadn't come yet. This made Zen Master Mingyu a bit flustered. Buzz, a slight buzzing sound came from the horizon. Zen Master Mingyu's ears twitched and a look of joy appeared on his face. He looked up and saw a few figures flying towards him with flashing sword lights in the distance. Ba. Longevity Academy's people are here. Zen Master Mingyu put his palms together and said with a smile. The Confucian cultivators are here. This Immortal Buddha ceremony can begin. As for Jiangchao Temple's Taoists, if they don't come, it can only be said that they fled before the battle. There's nothing to fear. As he spoke, Zen Master Mingyu tapped the monk's staff in his hand and was about to activate this Buddhist artifact to bring him up into the sky. However, from the little gold temple's mountain gate behind Zen Master Mingyu, a few loud and clear Buddhist chants came. Ba. Excellent, excellent. Martial nephew Mingyu. Hurry up and welcome the Confucian cultivators. Yes, martial uncle Xingqian. Zen Master Mingyu was overjoyed. Using the flying technique in front of so many people would be the center of attention. It would be of great significance to the little gold temple's reputation in the future. He could almost imagine the kind of longing these good men and women would have when they came to the little gold temple to worship Buddha and fulfill their vows. However, before he could activate his telekinesis, a few excited donkey cries came from the mountain path at the bottom of the hill. Soon after, a hoarse voice with the same excitement faintly sounded. Zen Master Mingyu couldn't hear what the voice was saying, but he had a bad feeling in his heart, because the voice was very familiar. Wasn't it Taoist Xiao Jian from Jiangchao Temple? Sure enough, when he looked up, on the mountain path far away, a lame donkey was pulling a broken carriage. In front of the carriage was Yuanya. He held a small whip in his hand and was trying his best to control the small broken carriage to move towards the little gold temple. After Yuanya was naturally Xiao Jian. He was standing on the carriage and waving his hand at Zen Master Mingyu. Zen Master Mingyu sighed. Is this the Taoist's honor? How shameful. Ming Cheng, go and welcome them. Anyway, they're here for the immortal Buddhist ceremony. Our little gold temple can't be impolite. Unfortunately, before Ming Cheng could speak, Xing Chen's instructions rang in Zen Master Mingyu's ears. Sigh, the Taoist sect has fallen to such a state. How can they be a match for our Buddhism sect? Forget it. Nephew Mingyu, go and welcome them. Anyway, they're here for the immortal Buddhist ceremony. Our little gold temple can't be impolite. Yes. Yes, Zen Master Mingyu opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but when he saw Xing Chen fly up from the mountain gate with Xing Kong, Xing Min, and Xing Fan, the crowd of nearly 2,000 people was in an uproar. Everyone exclaimed, and many people even knelt on the ground and shut their mouths helplessly. Zen Master Mingyu waved his hand and shouted, Ming Fa Ming Cheng, follow me down the mountain to welcome the Taoist sect of Jiangchao Temple. When you see them in the arena later, don't hold back. Beat them into a pig's head for me. Yes, senior brother. Seeing that Zen Master Mingyu was so angry that he spoke like that, Ming Fa and Ming Cheng didn't dare to not answer loudly. Zen Master Mingyu strode down the mountain. The mountain path that had been watered and cleaned long ago was already covered in dust after being trampled by 2,000 people, staining the lower hem of the Zen Master's brand new monk robe. The little stains were hard to hide, just like Zen Master Mingyu's mood. However, seeing that the donkey carriage was approaching, Zen Master Mingyu took a deep breath and passed his monk staff to Ming Cheng. He put his palms together and bowed. Taoist Xiao, I represent the Buddhism sect to welcome the Taoist sect to the immortal Buddhist ceremony of the Buddhism sect and the Confucian cultivators. Chapter 3207. You just as Monk Mingyu was bowing, not only did the donkey cart not stop, it even sped up. Yuanya hurriedly pulled on the reins of the lame donkey and shouted loudly, wanting to stop the donkey cart. Yuanya's strength was extremely great. Slurp the reins caused great pain to the lame donkey. It couldn't help but raise its front legs and neighed loudly. It sounded as if it was replying to Monk Mingyu's words. The donkey cart's sudden movement caused the people on the cart to lose their balance. Xiao Jian stood on the cart and couldn't help but stagger. He jumped off the donkey cart and landed on the ground. He hurriedly cupped his hands and said, I don't dare. I'm just a small Taoist and can't represent my Taoism. But today, for the survival of my Taoism, I still dare to pay a visit to Shaojin Temple. Xiao Jian's voice wasn't soft, but it was hard to hear because of the donkey's neighing. Go to hell. Yuanya, who was holding the reins, saw the lame donkey struggling and couldn't help but get angry. He shook the reins and jumped off the cart, kicking the lame donkey's butt. Yuanya's strength was extremely great. Slurp. The lame donkey cried out in pain. It was kicked to the side of the mountain path by Yuanya, and fell to the ground along with the cart. Xiao Hua, who was sitting cross-legged at the back of the cart, calmly jumped off the cart. Although his figure was strong and healthy, one couldn't see anything special about him. Damn it! Xiao Jian originally had the look of an expert as he politely bowed to Zen Master Mingyu. When he saw this, his expression changed drastically as he cursed. Yeah, this is the donkey cart that I borrowed from the tea house at the foot of the mountain. This donkey is worth a lot of money. If you break it, how am I going to compensate the tea house's boss? Hearing this, Yuanya didn't say anything. Monk Mingyu's face turned green. He glanced at Ming Cheng, who understood and said with a smile, Taoist Xiao, don't bother about the donkey cart. Let's hurry up the mountain. It's already late. The immortal Buddha ceremony should start. The competition on the stage has already made people look forward to it. Ayo, that's right. When Xiao Jian heard this, he came to his senses and shouted, That's right, yeah. Hurry and move the donkey cart to the side. In a while, you will be competing with these monks on stage. Remember, since we came here today, we don't plan to go back. After we get the arena, we will take this little gold temple under our Jiangchao temple. Is this a donkey cart? It's fine if you don't want it. Master. On the other side, Yuanya had already raised the donkey cart with one hand. The lame donkey was also obedient now. It shyly moved to Yuanya's side, and actually licked his hand. Unfortunately, Yuanya slapped the donkey's head to the side and answered Xiao Jian. This donkey cart is worth a few coins. Although Shaojin Temple has some copper coins, we can't live extravagantly. Zen Master Mingyu was so angry that his nose was about to become crooked. He looked around and saw that there weren't many villagers from Longevity Town. Thus he sneered. Shaojian, are you daydreaming? Do you think this penniless monk doesn't know what you and your disciple are capable of? You, a new Taoist disciple, want to chase this poor monk away from Longevity Town? Hee, why don't we wait and see? Shaojian laughed loudly. However, this old man feels that you should ask Ming Fa about this. He seems to be more confident than you. This penniless monk only knows that he can give you a black eye. Ming Fa's gaze naturally avoided Xiao Hua. He coldly looked at Xiao Jian and shouted, if you have the ability, why don't you come to the arena with this penniless monk? Haha, of course. In a while I will see you on the arena. Xiao Jian waved his hand and looked at the crowd in the distance. He smiled and said, Mingyu, why aren't you bringing this penniless monk to the arena? Is this how your little gold temple treats its guests? Zen Master Mingyu gritted his teeth hatefully. However, he still put his palms together and said, Ba, Taoist Xiao has come like this. As he spoke, he took the monk's staff from Ming Cheng and led the way without looking back. He led Xiao Jian and the other two up the mountain path. In the sky, Xingchen was flying in front. When he saw the faces of Mo Jianli and the others, he unconsciously narrowed his eyes. These people's cultivation was about the same as his, but Mo Jianli was obviously much younger than him. The hidden immortal continent was indeed full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. However, when he thought of Ling Chen's powerful Buddhist awareness that made him feel suffocated, he sneered in his heart. He stopped in midair, put his palms together and saluted. Xing Chen of the Cloud Forest Temple and my 3 junior brothers, Xing Kong, Xing Min, and Xing Fan, greet fellow immortals of Confucian cultivation. We don't dare. Mo Jianli was originally behind Zhu Junfeng. When he saw that it was not Mingyu who flew out of the little gold temple, but an old monk with second stage elemental energy, he immediately flew out from behind Zhu Junfeng and bowed. I am Mo Jianli of the Chongyan sect. I bring my 3 junior nephews, Qiu Jian, Li Mo Ming, and Ji Dong, as well as Zhu Junfeng and Tai, and of the Longevity Academy. Greetings, fellow immortals of the Cloud Forest Temple. When the Confucian cultivators and the Buddhist cultivators met, they greeted each other and exchanged greetings. Zhu Junfeng looked at Zen Master Mingyu, who was leading Xiao Jian up the mountain gate of the Little Gold Temple, and the villagers below the stage. He took half a step forward and said respectfully, I am Zhu Junfeng of the Longevity Academy. On behalf of the Longevity Academy, I welcome Senior to the Longevity Town to participate in the Immortal Buddha ceremony. Haha, Junior Zhu. Xingchen smiled and said, I have heard of Principal Zhu's name before I came to the Longevity Town. In these few years, the Longevity Academy has not only supported the Little Gold Temple, but also sent out students to help the Little Gold Temple today. That's why Mingyu did not make a fool of herself. On behalf of the Cloud Forest Temple, I have to thank the Longevity Academy. Seeing that the immortals and Buddhists of the Longevity Town are getting along so well, in 10 or 20 years, I will still come to the Longevity Town to participate in the Immortal Buddha ceremony. Haha, if Senior is so considerate, the Longevity Academy will invite Senior to the Longevity Town to participate in the Immortal Buddha ceremony every 10 years. Zhu Junfeng said with a smile. Yes, that's how it should be. Xingchen also clapped his hands. In the future, every 10 years, I will also ask Mingyu to send an invitation to fellow Immortal Mo. You and I will come together. Haha, well said, well said. Mo Jianli did not like to argue with Xingchen. He laughed dryly and looked at Xiao Jian, who had not yet reached the mountain gate. He waved his hand and said, Martial Nephew Junfeng, you go ahead with Martial Nephew Mingyue and hold the Immortal Buddha ceremony. I have a few words with fellow Immortal Xingchen. Yes, Junior Uncle. Zhu Junfeng agreed and cupped his hands at Xingchen and the others. Then he flew through the crowd with Mr. Tai, and then landed on the arena. Greetings, sir. As soon as Zhu Junfeng and Mr. Tai landed, Hundreds of disciples shouted in unison. It was such a spectacular sight that a few people almost collapsed on the ground. Haha, you have worked hard. Zhu Junfeng was as elegant as jade. He raised his hand and gestured to his surroundings. From the looks of it, he was even more like an abbot than Zen Master Mingyu. President Zhu, a loud voice came from below the arena. I haven't seen you in a long time. I heard that the Tidal River Temple will be challenging the Shaojin Temple and the Longevity Academy today. You won't be joining in, will you? Haha, so it's shopkeeper Zhang. Zhu Junfeng glanced at him and said kindly, it's just a spar. I'm afraid it's not my turn to fight. Of course, if you need me to fight, I will not be stingy. I will not hide anything. Because my Longevity Academy is Longevity Town's academy, Longevity Academy students are Longevity Town students. This Zhu is also a citizen of Longevity Town. Good, well said. Before Zhu Juanfeng's voice landed, countless applause and cheers rang out. Many of the villagers who had never seen the methods of Confucianism before looked at Zhu Junfeng with pious eyes. They had long regarded Zhu Junfeng as an immortal who had descended to the mortal world. At this moment, Zen Master Mingyu had already arrived at the mountain gate. He had already heard Zhu Juanfeng's words, and the anger in his heart was even more depressing than when he heard Xiao Jian's arrogant words. If Zen Master Mingyu's nose was crooked from anger just now, he would be fuming with rage right now. Zhu Juanfeng's words and the Shaojin Temple's efforts were covered up. Wasn't the Shaojin Temple doing all the work for others? Who was the abbot of the Shaojin Temple? Unfortunately, Zen Master Mingyu could not get angry. He could only put on a fake smile and wait patiently for the pig-like Xiaojian to catch up. Martial Uncle Xingqian's words last night were right. At this moment, Zen Master Mingyu was completely convinced. He originally thought that since Chongqing Academy was a Confucian cultivator, they would at least know more about etiquette than Jiangchao Temple. However, now that they had shown their etiquette, it was clear what they were thinking. Of course, Zhu Junfeng raised his hand again and smiled. Today, Shaojin Temple is hosting the ceremony. Longevity Academy is also here as a guest. On behalf of Longevity Academy, I would like to thank the Buddhist sect, the disciples of Shaojin Temple, and Zen Master Mingyu for your hard work and effort. Amitabha Buddha is merciful. Fortunately, although the 30 or so monks' chants were not as loud as Longevity Academy's, they were still uniform. It was obvious that they had practiced this countless times. Amitabha, many of the villagers who came to participate in the ceremony were also devotees of Shaojin Temple. There were even some who had been instructed by Zen Master Mingyu many times. When they heard the monks speak, they naturally echoed. The entire scene was finally harmonious in Zen Master Mingyu's eyes. Buddha is merciful at this moment. Zen Master Mingyu had just reached the mountain gate. He lightly tapped the staff in his hand and activated the telekinesis in his body. An extremely faint cloud appeared under the staff and wrapped around Zen Master Mingyu's feet. Then, as Zen Master Mingyu raised his hand and lowered his head to chant Buddha's name, he slowly flew toward the arena. Buddha is merciful. Zen Master Mingyu usually did not reveal his Buddhist cultivation. When he suddenly flew from the mountain gate to the arena, many devotees were stunned. Then a commotion broke out. In just a moment, many people lowered their heads and chanted Buddha's name with Zen Master Mingyu. Chapter 3208. Welcome Principal Zhu and Mr. Tian to my Shaojin Temple for the Immortal Buddha ceremony. Zen Master Mingyu landed on the arena gracefully and bowed to Zhu Junfeng and Mr. Tian. Greetings, Zen Master Mingyu. Zhu Junfeng and Mr. Tai, and naturally returned the greeting. Zen Master Mingyu glanced at Xingqian and Mo Jianli, who were still discussing in mid-air, then faced the audience and said with a smile, "It's a pity that my Shaojin Temple is lacking in manpower, and this is the first time we're holding such a grand Immortal Buddha ceremony. It can't be compared to Chongqing Academy at all." Benefactors who went to Chongqing Academy to participate in the Immortal Buddha ceremony 10 years ago might not have said it out loud, but I'm sure you're already grumbling about how stingy my Shaojin Temple is, right? Boom! There was a burst of laughter below the arena. Everyone had a kind smile on their faces. They didn't think too much about the competition between Confucian cultivators and Buddhists. Although my Shaojin temple didn't do well today, with the help of Chongqing Academy, I think my Shaojin temple will do better and better. Zen Master Mingyu continued. After 10 years, 20 years, or even 50 years, my Shaojin temple will definitely give all of you a perfect immortal Buddha ceremony. Clap clap, there was another round of applause below the arena. Zhu Junfeng didn't care about Zen Master Mingyu's tit-for-tat words. He also raised his hand and clapped with a warm smile on his face. Of course, the so-called immortal Buddha ceremony is to commemorate the friendship between us Confucian cultivators and Buddhists. This friendship was also tested in the fight against the enemy. Now the hidden immortal continent, the Western Paradise, and the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm are the proof of this precious friendship. Although time will pass, although you and I will grow old, although the sun and moon will change, this friendship will never change. Holding the ceremony every 10 years is to remind us juniors that the peace of the 3 continents was not easy to come by. Not only must we not forget the blood, sweat, and sacrifice of our seniors, we must also work together, through thick and thin, to build the 3 continents into a more prosperous place. Zen Master Mingyu was not done yet, so he spoke in a loud and impassioned voice. Prosperous high in the sky, Missouri Jianli whispered something to Xingqian while paying attention to the movements in the arena. When he heard Zen Master Mingyu say this word, the corners of his mouth twitched slightly, as if he wanted to laugh. But after a while he forced himself to hold back and said, "Fellow immortal Xingqian, your Cloud Forest Temple has been developing rapidly in the country of Xi these years. My Chongyun sect is truly envious. Perhaps one day, your Yunlin Temple will also become a scene of prosperity." Xingqian raised his eyebrows and glanced at Zen Master Mingyu, whose face was flushed red, and said with a fake smile, "This is not because my Yunlin Temple is developing well, but because the people of the country of Xi like my Buddhism sect, and need my Buddhism sect. My Buddha is merciful, my Buddhism sect does not develop on its own, and does not feel the need of others. Only when my Buddhism sect is needed, my Buddha will be there to solve the needs of the people. If one day, the people of Longevity Town say that we do not need Buddhism sect's illumination, that we do not need Buddha's salvation, then my Yunlin Temple will immediately evacuate the disciples of Shaojin Temple, and return the Shaojin Temple to Longevity Town." Haha, Mo Jianli only said one sentence, but Xingqian actually said so many philosophical words, he did not know how to feel. He smiled faintly and said, "Whether your Buddhism sect disciples evacuate or not, perhaps it is up to the Yunlin Temple to decide, or perhaps it is up to the Rivertide Temple to decide. Either way, it is not up to me to decide. Just now, I have already told fellow Immortal about the news my Chongyun sect received. Although fellow Immortal did not say it clearly, I feel that the news Yunlin Temple received should be similar to that of my Chongyun sect, right?" "That's right." Hearing that Mo Jianli was talking about business, Xingqian stopped arguing with Mo Jianli. He nodded and said, "I came here for the same reason as you, fellow Immortal Mo. We are here because of the vague news that the monster is going to massacre the town of Longevity. Also, just last night, my Shaojin Temple's disciples met with a strange thing." "Oh, what is it?" Mo Jianli's eyes lit up, and said hurriedly, "Could it be that you have found out the truth?" "Although not yet, but it is close." Xingqian nodded, and then told him about Minister Hao's family. "Ah." Hearing this, Mo Jianli was stunned, and looked up with a strange expression. It was Xiao Hua, who had followed Xiao Jian to the front of the arena, his eyes fixed on the arena, and asked curiously, "Fellow Immortal Mo, are you talking about this person?" "He should be." Xingqian smiled and said, "Besides Xiao Jian and Yuanya, isn't there only one person in the Rivertide Temple? Who else could it be?" "It seems that fellow Immortal Mo has hidden himself well." Mo Jianli nodded slightly and said, "Although I heard that there were miracles in the Rivertide Temple, I always thought that it was caused by the elixirs that Taoist Xiao had. If it is as fellow Immortal Mo said, then I have to look at Taoist Xiao in a new light. Heh, Taoist disciples have risen from the ashes for a long time, and there have been many in the past, right? They are just decorations for the Immortal Buddha ceremony, so you don't have to care about them," Xingqian said with a smile. Well, let's not talk about the Rivertide Temple. Mo Jianli looked away and said, I came to Rivertide Town a few days ago, and I met with something in the Liao River outside the town. Then Mo Jianli told Xingqian about the Liao River, and then he pointed at Xiao Jian, who was in the arena, and said with a smile, the next day, those fishermen went to the Rivertide Temple and reconstructed the so-called golden body of the sea god. Humph, they are all fools. The so-called sea god is just a clay statue, and there is no Buddha. Xingqian sneered and said with disdain. However, he stopped when he saw Mo Jianli's expression change. Mo Jianli was no match for Xingqian when it came to a battle of words, but now they were fighting against an unknown monster together. He could not let others have a bad impression of him. Therefore, he changed the topic and said, how could it be as miraculous as the disciples of the immortal Buddha sect? However, if what fellow immortal Mo said is true, could it be that the monster is a member of the water tribe? Very likely. Mo Jianli nodded and said, but after that day, I took 2 martial nephews along the river for hundreds of miles, and we didn't find anything. However, according to what fellow immortal Mo said, the ordinary monsters near Jiangqing town have all escaped. Maybe it is really a member of the water tribe in the river. Well, since we have found the monster's location, after today's immortal Buddha ceremony, we will search along the river again. Your divine eye and spiritual sense are marvelous, and my Buddhist sense is also good at observing the subtle. We should be able to find something. Okay, as fellow immortal Mo said. Mo Jianli clapped his hands and said with a smile, let's go and see if the immortal Buddha ceremony of the Shaojin Temple is different from the one of the Chongqing Academy. Please. Xingqian raised his hand and said with a smile, I am a host. Please forgive me if I don't treat you well. Ha ha ha, please. Mo Jianli also laughed, and several people controlled the clouds and sword lights to land on the arena. Zen Master Mingyu flew onto the arena with the help of his staff. Xiao Jian, who was behind him, was displeased. He looked around and found no ladder. The arena was 6 feet high. How could he get onto it? Senior Xiao Jian naturally thought of Xiaohua first. He turned around and called out. However, behind Xiao Jian, Xiaohua stood there in a daze. His eyes stared straight at the extremely ordinary arena. He turned a deaf ear to Xiao Jian's words. Senior Xiao? Xiao Jian called out again, but Xiaohua still ignored him. Xiao Jian did not dare to say any more. He roared at Yuanya, who was behind Xiaohua. Why are you dying behind Senior Xiao? Quick, get Master onto the arena. Yes, Master. Yuanya answered and ran in front of Xiao Jian. He looked at the edge of the arena and called out. Master, come here. Disciple can throw you onto the arena. Throw? Xiao Jian looked at the somewhat tall arena. He clenched his teeth and said, fine, throw then throw. Anyway, this is the only time I will lose face. After the competition, this Shaojin temple will belong to this old man. This old man will be the first to break this arena. As he spoke, Xiao Jian walked in front of Yuanya. He closed his eyes and waited for Yuanya to throw him onto the arena, the arena of martial arts competition. Stage, the stage of village opera Lu Town Piaomiao sect. Xiaohua stood at the mountain gate. When he saw the arena for the first time, a kind of incomparable familiarity emerged from the bottom of his heart. Scenes of extremely familiar scenes appeared in his mind. A small child waving the clumsy and specious Big Dipper god fist on the arena, fighting with several monks in all seriousness. That childish face was filled with seriousness and longing. Immediately after, there was another huge stage. On it, there were several people dressed in opera costumes singing. Immediately after, there were several indistinct punches and kicks. Zhang Xiaohua. Oh Zhang Xiaohua. So you were so cute when you were young. So stubborn. So righteous. Xiaohua's eyes could not help but heat up. Lu Town, my hometown. Perhaps it is in this hidden immortal continent. In his memory, he had never seen this arena in the Dawn Rain continent. Moreover, the Dawn Rain continent did not have anything like a stage. There was also no cultivation sect or Buddhist sect called Piaomiao sect. It seems like this Xiao was sent back to his hometown by fate's hands. Only I don't know which country this Lu Town is in, and which province it is in. When Xiao Jian walked in front of Yuanya and waited for Yuanya to throw him onto the arena, the corner of Xiao Hua's mouth rose again. He laughed and said, Zhang Xiaohu, haha, that is my second brother. Back then, he seemed to have thrown me into the ring just like that. The liveliness of the Shaojin Temple's arena made Xiao Hua think of many familiar scenes. Naturally, he did not hear Ming Fei's soft reminder when he walked to his side. Daoist Xiao. Seeing that Xiao Jian actually wanted Yuanya to throw him onto the arena, Zen Master Ming Yu did not know whether to laugh or cry. Isn't this looking for trouble with the Shaojin Temple? Isn't this silently telling others that the Daoist branch of the Rivertide Temple received unfair treatment in the Shaojin Temple? Thus, Zen Master Ming Yu hurriedly shouted, there is a ladder behind the arena that leads to the arena. Chapter 3209. Why didn't you say so earlier? Are you trying to make a joke out of this old man? What kind of attitude is this? Xiao Jian snorted in annoyance and hurriedly looked behind the stage that was covered by a cloth. Unfortunately, the cloth was very tight and he couldn't see it clearly with the naked eye. Daoist Xiao, please come over here. A scholar with delicate features came out from behind the stage and said with a smile, thank you, young master. Xiao Jian cupped his hands and said casually, Longevity Academy's students are really sensible. Compared to the monks of Small Gold Temple, you are many times better. In the future, when this old man is in charge of Small Gold Temple, this Small Gold Temple will become Small Gold Temple. I will definitely invite Longevity Academy students to eat and drink at Small Gold Temple for 3 days. That student smiled faintly and didn't reply. He led Xiao Jian and Yuanya to the ladder behind the stage that was covered by the cloth and cupped his hands before turning to leave. Benefactors, on the stage, Zen Master Ming Yu ignored Xiao Jian and said with a smile, I believe that some benefactors already know that today's Immortal Buddhist ceremony is different from 10 years ago. The difference is that there is a Daoist sect in Longevity Town's Jiangqiao Ridge who wants to challenge Small Gold Temple's Buddhist sect. Furthermore, if any benefactors were present that day, they would know that this challenge was initiated by Daoist Xiao Jian from Jiangqiao Monastery. That day, this old monk went to Longevity Town to look for Principal Zhu of Longevity Academy, to discuss with him about today's Immortal Buddhist ceremony. Since this old monk saw that Jiangqiao Monastery had such ambitions, this old monk decided to push this competition to today. Principal Zhu also passed by that day and decided on today's event on the spot, as well as the competition between Small Gold Temple and Jiangqiao Monastery. Zen Master Ming Yu is right. Zhu Junfeng didn't miss the opportunity to say, in this year's Immortal Buddhist ceremony, other than the cultivation of Confucian cultivators and Buddhist sects, there will also be a competition between Buddhist and Taoist sects. The price of this competition was decided 10 days ago. Whichever sect loses the competition will disappear from Longevity Town. All right, below the stage, there were already people who weren't afraid of things getting out of hand. No matter what purpose they had, their faces were filled with fanaticism and excitement. From the looks of it, there was no shortage of people who came to watch the show. Only my Small Gold Temple has the geographical advantage, and Immortal Academy has also come to participate. That is why this poor monk has given the authority to set the rules to Rivertide Temple's Taoist priest Xiao. Today, I asked Taoist priest Xiao to explain it in front of all these benefactors. When Zen Master Ming Yu saw Xiao Jian walk up to the arena, he chuckled and said, let's see if the rules are fair. Good. Below the arena, a few elders clapped and said, Zen Master Ming Yu is indeed an upright person. He doesn't bully others. I greet Principal Zhu. Xiao Jian walked up the stage and cupped his hands towards Zhu Junfeng. Zhu Junfeng naturally did not dare to be negligent, and also cupped his hands in return. Following which, Xiao Jian walked up 2 steps and stood side by side with Zen Master Ming Yu and the others. He cupped his hands towards the surroundings again, as if he wasn't uneasy at all. He smiled and said, Benefactors, my Rivertide Temple doesn't have many people. Including I, there are only 3 people. Benefactors, you must be a witness for my Rivertide Temple. Don't let this small gold temple shamelessly refuse to leave after our Rivertide temple wins. Ha ha ha. Below the stage, everyone roared with laughter. Don't worry. If small gold temple loses and they don't leave, we will chase them away for you. That's good. This way, I can be at ease. Xiao Jian bowed towards the crowd and said, Now I will announce the rules of the competition and let everyone see if it is fair. Good. Below the stage, everyone shouted in unison. Xiao Jian glanced at Zen Master Mingyu and Zhu Junfeng and said, My Rivertide temple doesn't have many people, and Small Gold Temple doesn't have many people. If my Rivertide temple were to compete with Small Gold Temple, it would be fine. However, Chongqing Academy actually has over 1,000 people. If all of them participate. Without waiting for Xiao Jian to finish, Zhu Junfeng immediately waved his hand and said, Daoist Xiao, don't worry. My Chongqing Academy only has 131 people. If you say how many people you want to send, my Chongqing Academy will send that many people. Hehe, that's good. Xiao Jian nodded. I feel that Small Gold Temple and Chongqing Academy should send 10 people each. Oh. Zen Master Mingyu looked at Zhu Junfeng. He originally thought that Xiao Jian would ask Small Gold Temple and Chongqing Academy to send 3 people each. He was already prepared to refute. He didn't expect Xiao Jian to agree to Small Gold Temple and Chongqing Academy sending 10 people each. It was really unexpected. Zhu Junfeng smiled. Even if there are 10 people, your Rivertide Temple will only send 3. Wouldn't you be at a disadvantage? There is no other way, Xiao Jian said helplessly. It is the Immortal Buddha ceremony. Naturally, Confucian cultivators and Buddhist sects will be the main participants. My Daoist sect will only be there for decoration. Fine. Zen Master Mingyu nodded. Then how should we compete? Very simple. Xiao Jian raised his voice. Our 3 sects will list out the names of the participants and announce it on the spot. Then they will go up the stage according to the order from first to last. Of course, only 2 people can compete on the stage. The order will be Confucian, Buddhist and Taoist. Whichever sect's disciple loses, the next sect's disciple will go up. Of course, if this disciple loses, he will lose the right to fight again. The next disciple will wait for his sect's turn to go up the stage. In the end, whichever sect's disciple stays on the stage will win. Of course, my Rivertide Temple and Small Gold Temple, whichever sect's disciple loses first will lose the challenge and disappear from Chongqing town. Hehe, I'll say something. Zhu Junfeng waited for Xiao Jian to finish before saying with a smile. Daoist Zhao's method seems fair, but there are still some drawbacks. If my Longevity Academy and Xiao Jin Temple work together, wouldn't your Rivertide Temple suffer a great loss? One of your disciples is going to deal with 2 of our disciples. Hehe, I believe in Chongqing Academy. Xiao Jian smiled. If I don't believe in Chongqing Academy in Chongqing town, who can I believe in? Good. Zhu Junfeng clapped. Since Daoist Xiao believes in my Chongqing Academy, I will also represent Chongqing Academy to explain to the people of Chongqing town that my Chongqing Academy will definitely not cheat for personal gain, and will definitely not show mercy in the competition. Good, I will testify. Everyone below the stage clamored loudly. Daoist Xiao, are you at ease? Monk Mingyu sneered. Xiao Jian laughed. I have always believed in Chongqing Academy. And since Daoist Xiao believes in me, then I still have to say a few words. Zhu Junfeng continued. The key to the competition is Small Gold Temple and Rivertide Temple. Therefore, the order should be Buddhist, Taoist, and Confucian. My Chongqing Academy fighting with whoever is first is unfair to them. Daoist Xiao, don't you agree? Oh, that's right. Principal Zhu is right. I really didn't think that much. Xiao Jian slapped his forehead and said, I was thinking about how to arrange the 3 people of Rivertide Temple, so that they wouldn't be at a disadvantage. I really didn't think about this. If Daoist Xiao has no objections, then let's use this order. Zhu Junfeng smiled. Chongqing Academy has no objections to the other rules. What about Monk Mingyu? Ba, I have no objections. Principal Zhu is right. Monk Mingyu said with a smile. Good, since that's the case, I will go and prepare the name list for the competition. Zhu Junfeng clapped. How about letting the disciples prepare for the ceremony? Good, that's how it should be. Monk Mingyu looked up and saw Xingchen, and Mo Jianli, and the others flying over. He smiled and said, "It's a good opportunity for the seniors to be our reference." Then Monk Mingyu tapped his staff and said, "Principal Zhu, please. Oh, I will go down with Daoist Xiao." Zhu Junfeng did not activate his sword light, but smiled and said to Xiao Jian, "Then let's go down together." Monk Mingyu nodded slightly. After the 5 of them left the arena, Xiao Jian looked up at the 2 sheds on both sides of the arena and said with a smile, "Lord Abbot, may I know where the disciples of Rivertide Temple are resting? Which of these 2 sheds is?" Rivertide Temple only has 3 people. Please come to my Shaojin Temple's mountain gate to rest. Zen Master Mingyu said faintly, "After the Immortal Buddha ceremony, I will see you on the arena." "Mingyu, aren't you going too far?" Xiao Jian was furious. "Daoist Xiao, if you don't mind, why don't you come to my Chongqing Academy's shed?" Zhu Junfeng quickly said. "No need." Xiao Jian shook his head and said, "After today, this Shaojin Temple will belong to my Taoist sect. Who would have the patience to mess with the Buddhist sect now?" Then he waved his hand and said to Yuanya, "Yuanya, bring the donkey cart here. We can't let the rent of 3 copper coins go to waste. This old man will rest on the donkey cart." Zhu Junfeng laughed and brought Mr. Tai into the shed under the guidance of the students. Monk Mingyu smiled coldly and left without paying attention to Xiao Jian. Xiao Jian turned around and walked towards the Shaojin Temple's mountain gate in anger. Yuanya quickly ran towards the mountain path beside the mountain gate. That lame donkey was tied to a tree beside the path. "Senior, what are you looking at?" Seeing Xiao Hua standing there and looking at the arena, Xiao Jian was puzzled and asked in a low voice, "What is there to look at in this arena? Is this kind of arena common in Hidden Immortal Continent?" Xiao Hua asked in a low voice. "Naturally, it is very common." Xiao Jian nodded and said, "As long as there is a fight, it will be on the arena." "Oh, then have you heard of Lu Town and Piamiao sect?" Xiao Hua asked again. "Lu Town? Piamiao sect?" Xiao Jian thought for a moment and shook his head. Disciple has not heard of it. However, there are countless villages and towns in Hidden Immortal Continent. Even if Disciple does not know, Disciple can guarantee that if there are not 20 Lu towns in Hidden Immortal Continent, there are at least 10. I just don't know which Lu town you are talking about. As for Piamiao sect, Disciple is not particularly familiar with Confucian sects and cannot casually say. Oh, Xiao Hua also did not think that he would be able to find it so quickly, and only lightly nodded his head. "That's right, senior. Did you see those people in the air just now?" Xiao Jian winked at Xiao Hua and said in a low voice, "How was it?" Chapter 32:10. Nothing. Xiao Hua spat out these 3 words, then turned around and walked towards the donkey cart that Yuanya brought over. Xiao Jian suppressed the ecstasy in his heart and quickly followed behind Xiao Hua. He looked at the gate of the small gold temple, as if he was looking at his own home. In just half a cup of tea's time, Xing Kong and Xing Min from the Cloud Forest Temple, along with 10 monks from the small gold temple, walked onto the stage. The 10 monks sat cross-legged on the stage with a wooden fish in their hands. One of their hands tapped lightly, and the other hand placed in front of their chest while chanting. As the monks chanted, the entire stage emitted a faint Buddhist light. The Buddhist light gradually transformed into the shape of a lotus. Ba! The kind-hearted people below the stage couldn't help but cry out in shock. The moment the lotus took shape, clouds appeared below Xing Kong and Xing Min's feet. The 2 of them flew into the air, clapped their hands, and took out 2 purple gold alms bowls from their sleeves. Under the activation of their telekinesis, 2 Buddhist lights shot out from the alms bowls, like pillars of light flying into the air. Ba! Buddha is merciful. The 2 monks chanted Buddhist mantras as they formed seals with their hands and struck the alms bowl. The alms bowl emitted a thunderous sound as the pillars of Buddhist light trembled and intertwined in midair. Slowly, the image of a benevolent Buddha that was dozens of feet tall appeared in midair. "Buddha, please protect us." Seeing a huge Buddha standing in front of them, Many of the villagers didn't dare to stand anymore. Plop, plop, plop. They all kneeled on the ground, and the entire area below the stage was in chaos. Junfeng, did you see that? Mo Jianli coldly said. This is bewitching people's hearts. The Buddhist sect is much better than us Confucian cultivators. If we want to chase the Buddhist sect away from the hidden immortal continent, we must first chase them away from the hearts of the people. Yes, disciple understands. Zhu Juanfeng's face was also filled with worry as he softly replied. The Buddha standing on the lotus stayed in the air for the time it takes to eat a meal. And then it turned into thousands of specks of light that scattered around the stage. Xing Chen's voice was extremely calm. Ba, this is my grace, the reign of the world. Anyone who obtains this item has fate with the Buddha, and is born with kindness. Buddha, please protect us. Buddha is merciful. In an instant everyone went crazy, and almost reached out their hands to grab the Buddhist light that was falling down. The entire area below the stage immediately became extremely dangerous. Clang among the thousands of Buddhist lights. The sound of metal clanging suddenly, the sound of metal, of the 100 or so Immortal Academy's disciples were scattered all around the stage. At the same time, they all waved their hands, and drew long swords from their backs. This sword energy was originally weak, but when the 100 or so disciples all activated it at the same time, the scene was magnificent. The sword energy was like a song, and immediately cut apart the thousands of Buddhist lights, and even destroyed the fanaticism of the 1,000 or so people. Go. Seeing this, Zhu Junfeng patted his back, and the flying sword rushed into the air like a rainbow. At the same time, Qiu Jianli Mo Ming and Ji Dong didn't hesitate, and 3 flying swords flew out together with Zhu Juanfeng's flying sword. The 4 flying swords on the stage were like swimming dragons, and set off waves of turbulent waves. When the sword light scattered in the air, the 100 or so flying swords at the same time emitted a strong sword cry, and rushed to the sky, as if they were flying together, and clustered around the 4 flying swords. Then, the 4 flying swords led 4 separate groups of flying swords to dance in the air, and the 1,000 or so people below the stage couldn't help but be fascinated. Go! Mo Jianli lightly shouted, and Zhu Junfeng and the other 3 rushed into the air, and landed on the flying swords. With a wave of his hand, the 100 or so flying swords turned into fish, and followed Zhu Junfeng and the other 3 in the air. Mo Jianli waved his hand, and a fist-sized vermilion red gourd appeared in his hand. As Mo Jianli activated his Yuan Qi, the entire gourd gave off a red glow, and the red glow entered the air, and then turned into thousands of fog. The fog evaporated, and gradually covered the area around 1 mile in the air. While there was a soft sound, like rolling up a bead curtain, and a soft chuckle, like pearls falling onto a jade plate. But where the breeze passed, the fog was lifted, and a brilliant light was born from the fog, and an unimaginable fairyland appeared in the air. Thousands of golden lights rolled, and thousands of auspicious chi sprayed out purple fog. There was a heavenly gate, deep and dark, made of glass and bright and made of precious jade. Wasn't this the legendary Southern Heavenly Gate? Looking at the Southern Heavenly Gate, there were dozens of heaven-suppressing marshals on both sides, and one of them was leaning against a pillar, holding a mace. Around him were dozens of gods in golden armor, and each of them held halberds, whips, sabers, and swords. The outside was okay, but the inside was shocking. There were a few huge pillars in the inner wall, and on the pillars, there were golden-scaled brilliant sun-red bearded dragons. There were also a few long bridges, and on the bridges, there were phoenixes with colorful feathers flying in the air. Looking at the inside of the Southern Heavenly Gate, the bright clouds reflected the sky, and the green fog covered the entrance. On the stage of the God of Longevity, there were famous flowers that hadn't been shed for thousands of years, and beside the medicine furnace, there were evergreen herbs. In front of the pilgrimage tower, there were red robes, and the stars were bright. The hibiscus crown was golden and dazzling. Jade hairpins, pearl shoes, and purple ribbons with golden badges. When the golden bell rang, the 3 divine statues entered. When the heavenly drum rang, the 1,000 saints worshipped the immortal emperor. In the middle of the hall, there were golden nails and jade doors, and colorful phoenixes dancing on the vermilion door. The winding corridor was exquisite everywhere. 3 eaves and 4 clusters, and layers of dragons and phoenixes soared. Above, there was a purple weiwei. It was bright, round and bright, and on top of a big golden gourd. Below, there was a heavenly concubine holding a fan, and a jade maiden holding an immortal towel. Fierce, heavenly generals in charge of the state. Spirited, immortal ministers protecting the emperor. In the middle, there were many layers of tai pills in a glass plate. In an agate bottle, there were a few curved coral trees. There were all kinds of strange objects in the heavenly palace, and none of them existed in the world. Golden palace and purple palace, and chi flowers and jade grass. Passing by the jade rabbit altar, the golden crow flew at the bottom. The above are all references, not original works. Not only were the 1,000 or so people from Longevity Town on the left flabbergasted, drooling from the corners of their mouths, but even Xiaohua was flabbergasted. This kind of immortal realm was far from what an ordinary cultivation sect had. He, Senior Xiaojian's voice sounded in Xiaohua's ear. This is where the Confucian Immortal Palace is. Everything inside. Who knows if it's real or fake? This disciple never knew anyone who went to the Immortal Palace. Oh, I see. Xiaohua suddenly understood. This so-called Immortal Palace had nothing to do with him, and he didn't know if he could go there in this life. Then he looked at the other side of the arena, in the shed of the Buddhist sect. At this time, Xing Chen's face was also not good. The reason why he said those words in a low voice was to set off the atmosphere, to make people fight for the so-called Buddha's light. Those who snatched the Buddha's light, if Monk Mingyu could find them later, it meant that they were fated with the Buddha, and in the future, they would also be pilgrims of the small gold temple. He didn't expect such a big mess, but of course he didn't care about the chaos. What he cared about was that his Buddha's light was completely shattered by the sword light of the Confucian cultivator. This was a naked slap in the face. Originally, Xingchen was still thinking about how to deal with Chongyun Sec's Mo Jianli, but now he made a decision. As if he sensed something, Mo Jianli turned his head slightly and looked at Xingchen. Ba, Xingchen put his palms together, a big smile on his face. The Immortal Palace stayed in the air for a little less than an hour. The scene inside was like a revolving lantern. Heavenly maidens, immortals, immortal birds, and divine beasts. In short, it was all seen in the dreams of the secular world. When everyone felt like they were in a dream, all the fog slowly fell, and was absorbed into the gourd in Mo Jianli's hand. All the illusions disappeared without a trace, and only the 100 or so flying swords were still floating in the air. Chongqing Academy wishes the Immortal Buddha ceremony a success. The 110 students shouted in unison again. That voice, along with the true energy that the students cultivated, resounded loudly in the air above the entire small gold temple. Mixed with the whistling sounds of swords, it really made one immediately feel respectful. When Mo Jianli and the others descended from the air, the 100 or so flying swords flew back into the hands of the students. Zen Master Mingyu appeared on the stage and waved his hand. The Immortal Buddha ceremony is over. Now the competition that everyone has been waiting for is about to begin. This competition will affect the fate of the Little Gold Temple. I don't know if the Little Gold Temple will still exist in Chongqing Town after this battle. This poor monk is really nervous. The Little Gold Temple will win. Zen Master Mingyu will win. Someone shouted, and it immediately caused dozens of people to shout. The whole place was in an uproar again. Zhu Junfeng frowned. The key to this battle was the Little Gold Temple and the River and Tide Temple. It had nothing to do with Chongqing Academy. However, he didn't know if these words had other meanings, but it made him feel very unhappy. The voices below the stage rose and fell, making Zen Master Mingyu very excited. Thank you, everyone, for your blessings. This poor monk will do his best and will not disappoint you. Then Zen Master Mingyu opened his mouth again. The Little Gold Temple is the host of this Immortal Buddha ceremony. This poor monk will be the first to announce the order of the competition. As he spoke, Zen Master Mingyu announced the Little Gold Temple's name list. It was Jianzheng, Jianping, Jianshan, Mingfa, Mingcheng, Xingkong, Xingmin, Xingfan, and Xingchun. After he finished speaking, Zen Master Mingyu looked below the stage and said loudly, Priest Xiao Jian of the River and Tide Temple, Can your Tide Temple's name list come out? Haha, my Tide Temple only has 3 people. It's really simple. Xiao Jian said loudly. The first to fight is my inferior disciple, Yuanya. The second is naturally fellow Taoist Xiao Hua. The last is I. Oh, Xiao Hua. Both Mo Jianli and Xingchen looked at Xiao Hua. How could they not know Xiao Jian's wishful thinking? Xiao Hua was the one with the highest cultivation in the Tide Temple. As long as he didn't lose, Xiao Jian, who was average, didn't need to fight. What about Chongqing Academy? Zen Master Ming Yu also looked down on Xiao Jian in his heart. He raised his head and looked at Zhu Junfeng. Actually, according to Zhu Juanfeng's arrangement, the 4 seniors from the Chongyan sect didn't need to fight. At least, Mr. Mo Jianli didn't need to fight. However, after hearing the Little Gold Temple's arrangement, even Xingchen was arranged. How could Mo Jianli not fight? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.